to this. This one is an exclusive show. You know it because usually Sunday and Mondays we should have been resting, but today we are live because the conversations get more extensive and it gives us a more reason for us to learn every day. We don't have time on our back. We're just catching up on a lot of things that has passed us. Now that we're gradually getting awake and we need a lot of teachings, we need a lot of learning, we need a lot to listen and a lot to research and do by ourselves. So I want to welcome you to this Sunday exclusive stream with Benayah Israel and Queen Rachel. As usual, you know her. I think her name speaks for herself, her face and everything. Everyone knows it here. But if you're here for the first time, we are in the third series of the rebirth of a new nation, And today is quite interesting. We had Ron last time. The first time we had Queen Rachel, who gave us an overview of who we have been, who the Bantus and the true Israelites are. And this is a very uncovering story and a situation, not just a story, but our history that has now been uncovered, just like every other thing, the traditions, the culture, all everything that it has to do with us. And at this period, we're going to be listening to these teachings, and these teachers will be coming in different patterns on different topics to enlighten us why we gradually grab the process, why we gradually awake. So do not be afraid to do your research, but also do not be afraid to learn. What does that mean particularly? It means this is a situation in which we listen, and a lot of things are going to be very strange, like me. I am also learning here every day, and there are a lot of things that I have to research by myself. But the most important thing is listen a lot, do your research a lot. Don't just criticize if you don't have a fact and in something to talk against, but more in a constructive way, like we've been doing. Ask questions that you want to know more, or if you have an experience, that you can share your experience as well. So, and I think that's all what we've been doing every day on the Pan African Daily TV, and that's why I appreciate the followers here. Very matured, they constructive. That's the way we start our new learning, and exactly that's who we are. Today, we're going to be talking about the 12 tribes of Israel, Mishpachah. As I just learned a couple of seconds ago, that's how it's called in the Hebrew, or in our original language. Mishpachah means the 12 tribes of Israel. And Benayah is going to be telling us more about this family secret, how even the issue and the narrative that the slave trade started in Africa is a damn lie. Yeah, they're going to tell us how it originated even in the Europes, where I'm sitting, particularly in Germany, I guess, and before moving over to the continent of Africa. And so all this narrative and this very how do I want to say, high-end information is something that everyone looks forward to listen. Of course, Queen is always here to introduce his teachers or the whole family to us, and she's going to be telling us who Benayah is, just like he did for Ron, and what he's going to be talking about, what is the focus, and what is the key things that we need to learn in these lectures of today. And yeah, she's just here like the mama, the queen, to correct me when I'm wrong, to correct Benayah, or also, to learn, and also to learn. All of us are learning. So let me welcome you both here. I will start with Benayah because this is the first time of him being here. We give him the pride of audience. Benayah, good evening.
Shalom, shalom. How's everyone doing? Thank you for the opportunity to come and be on your platform. This is awesome.
Yes. I know you're not a man of small words or very few words, but you're just saving your energy because we're going to be talking maybe for 2 hours today or less, whatever. And yeah, Queen, how have you been?
I am well, and I just want to say again, Enie, thank you for inviting us to come over and join hands with the continent. This is such an amazing thing you're doing, and I really love your approach where you kind of have the little people talking, but they're people of great power. The scripture says that Yah will use the weak things to shame the strong of the world, and the foolish things to shame the wise of the world. And I find that your audience is just so brilliant and so spiritually awakened. They are these people who are, and a lot of your teachers who are doing this grassroots work. They're not necessarily establishment people. And so they're trailblazers. And so I'm so grateful that you've agreed to have these teachers come from America, the diaspora, your brothers and sisters, to share in this awakening with you. And a lot of these teachers are very humble, including Benayah. And the wonderful thing that Benayah did was that we use the word Ruach HaKodesh instead of Holy Spirit. And so the Ruach HaKodesh awakened Benayah to the fact that Israel actually was first enslaved from Europe. And we're told that our history is a history of the transatlantic slave trade. We're Africans, we don't know who we are. And our history always starts there, to re-enslave the mind. But he's helped us to break out of that by the power of the Ruach. And then Yah gave him all of this research previous to the 19 or 1800s, and all the way back to the fall of the temple. So he's able to track the scattering across Africa, and in particular up into Europe, the evangelization of Europe by our people, and then their eventual captivity and persecution there. So it's an amazing thing that Yah has worked through Benayah, which he can now share with you. And this is how we become connected again to the continent. And so this is what Benayah's going to talk about. And Benayah is, he's obviously a wonderful, educated, humble man, but he would not have been able to do this in a typical university setting, because the institutions require that you conform to their programming, their viewpoint, and then program the world with their perspective. So he did this in the Ruach HaKodesh by the power of Yah, in order to, like a lot of your teachers, to liberate our people, to become somebody who holds a key to liberating the 12 tribes, the Mishpachah. So what I'm going to do is let you go ahead and play that video. I just want to say a little prayer first that introduces this teaching for him and for the Mishpachah to share. And then he's going to go into his teaching. And as usual, I'm going to come back at the end. But we are really honored to have Benayah here. And again, we really would love to share culturally the connections people have with what Benayah is going to share today, because that's really what the 2-6 is about, is having the culture and intelligence of the mainland and the spirituality of the mainland to connect with these teachings, so that we can get a greater revelation of the truth in the Ruach. So that's what we're here to do. And so I just want to pray that that the Ruach HaKodesh, in the name of Yah, would lead everybody into all truth, that the seed of the word of Yah would be planted in the hearts of Yasharel, both in North America and on the continent, so that it would bring forth fruit of righteousness and truth, and so that we can be shown things to come. That is the kingdom of the future, and that is according to going back to the ancient ways and our history, to rebuild the future kingdom in HaMashiach. And so that is my prayer in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. And if you want, you can go ahead and show the video. Thank you.
Yes. Of course, we're going to show the video. I would like Benayah to just give a short introduction about himself and what people are expecting to learn in this video as we watch it. Benayah?
Shalom, shalom, everyone. So if you don't know, I'm from the States, from Georgia, believe it or not. People always ask me, well, you don't have a Georgia accent, because if you ever talk to anyone from the South, we tend to have a certain type of way that we talk, but I don't have that accent. So, but I'm here in the States. I tell people all the time that I'm just a brother. I'm your fellow brother here in the States. Of course, I'm a child of the diaspora. Quick bit of my background. I for sure know that my family were slaves here in the States. I know exactly where they were slaves. And actually my father's grandfather was a slave in Alabama. And then we were slaves in South Georgia. And actually from there, we've done our research to figure out, all right, so where are we from past Georgia, right? And, we've done things like we've done the whole DNA test and we DNA, depending on which company you go with, you get things back and they'll tell you like, hey, you're part Nigerian, or you're 52% Congolese, that sort of thing, which is all Bantu at the end of the day. But still, I wanted more as far as what my history was and where we were from and that sort of thing. And this is kind of where the research that I share with the world comes from, because my father came to me and he said, son, go and find out where we're from. And I started doing all this research, looking at books. And then one thing that we'll talk about here shortly is that when I looked at books, I started to see a certain pattern, right? And the pattern was, you look at old books, they'll tell you that Israel was black. They'll tell you all these deep, dark secrets about Europe and the transatlantic slave trade. But then you look at the new books, they tell you that Israel was white, and everyone. It's just totally different. It's totally different. So one of the key principles that I'm a big proponent of is I tell people, when you do your research, pay close attention to that little publication date that's on your book. If that publication date is a new book, then definitely you will get a certain history associated with that book. If you use an old book, you get something different. So this is this is also one of the reasons why when we put this truth forward, why academia, like universities, seminary schools, why they had a problem with what we were bringing out, because this wasn't Benayah bringing this out. Like this wasn't one of my books that I wrote, that I put out on the market that people could pick up and dissect. No, this was their books. These were their scholars, their historians writing all this stuff down, because at the time we were in chains. They had the freedom of writing without how can I put it? Without the fear of retribution, because they had us enslaved. They were ruling the world, dominating the world at that time. And of course they still are today, but we'll talk about that as well. So, but like I said, I can ramble on here for forever. But long story short is, when we dive into these books, and some of these books are very expensive. You'll see we'll read a book that's $50,000 US dollars. And if you wonder how much $50,000 US dollars would buy you, here in the States, it will buy you a brand new Cadillac, right? A brand new Cadillac, right? And then you gotta wonder, so why does this book cost $50,000? And of course, it's what's in it. And it's an old book. It was written in the 1600s, but that book tells you who went into slavery, where they sent them, and why. So Yah willing, Most High willing, we'll just kind of review some of this stuff. I've learned not to overwhelm the audience with a bunch of information, because we've got information that we can go on for like 3 or 4 hours. You had Brother Ron on here earlier, and he can go way longer than I can as far as that's concerned. But I just want to give the world just enough just to show you that this is provable, it's reproducible, and it's resilient, meaning that if you take this to a scholar that's in the university, it's hard for them to refute it, right? It's easy. Like if I bring a scripture up from the Bible, what I used to run into was that they'll say, well, that's your interpretation. But when I bring out these books that their scholars wrote long ago, it's silence, right? And this gets them to think, and this gets them to say, well, you know what, maybe there's something there, and this is where they are today. So shalom, family. I look forward to reviewing that with you.
Thank you very much. Of course, I'm also excited, and I think the audience is also excited. Why? Because we're going to watch this movie, but I'm greeting everyone that is just joining us here today. Greetings to you, Kamara. I see you just right. And somebody was already saying, what is the name of the book? But we're going to get into all these details. We'll get all into these details. The most important thing is that we know that the teachers are here to tell us about the ancient history that none of us would even lay hands on. And this ancient history is telling us who we are. And now we have the modern books that came up, the King James Version or whatever. Of course, if a British king would write your history, and then we know that, you can begin to imagine. But these are all things that are unveiling and opening up our spirit, opening up our mind in a more simplified way to say, we want to learn the ancient history, who we were, and how do we learn it? It's not just like the typical clergy that will say, you are this, you are this. No, we are learning in a factual a situation where we research from even those books that you see, like the brother is telling us 50,000 for a book. Wasn't it even the reason why they don't want us to get access to it? Which black man is going to buy a book for 50,000? You know, and so all that has actually brought us to the situation where we are today. And we're grateful to have you to sit down, take your time, and for Yah to call you, give you exactly your message to bring to your people. So we're very, very grateful and excited. So let us take a look at the short movie or short film, and that we get directly into the story. So if you're here for the first time, please click the link and subscribe and give us a like up thumbs. We're doing very great things. The teachers are doing great things. Rachel is always trying to put everything together. That is enormous. And we in the kingdom, everybody has a part to play. So let us take a look at the movie.
Good morning, family. It's your brother Benayah Ben Isreal, and I pray everyone is doing well. Today, I'd like to speak with you about prophecy. That's prophecy. Prophecy. Prophecy is a word that foretold the fall of nations and the rise of kingdoms. Prophecy has even foretold a story of great sacrifice, a story of great love, of sins forgiven, of a people scattered, and a people regathered to and from the four corners of the earth. Prophecy. Prophecy has foretold of a time to come, a time that is like none other ever seen since the man has walked the face of the earth. A time in the scriptures called the day of the Lord. Prophecy. It's a call of warning. It's a call to prepare. A call to turn back to the Heavenly Father, the creator of heaven and earth. Prophecy. Who will heed its call? Today, I want to talk with you a little about prophecy. You see, during the time of the Messiah, as he walked through the streets of Jerusalem, he gave a prophecy. He foretold of a prophecy that would change the nation of Israel for over 2,000 years. The prophecy of the destruction of the temple at Jerusalem. In the land of Judea, which is the south side of Isreal, you see, while the Messiah stood in the capital city on the south side, he gave the words we find in the book of Luke. This prophecy marked the fall of Jerusalem, the scattering of the children of Judah, and their eventual redemption in the last days. Turn with me to the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 20, and it reads, "And when you shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. and let not them that are in the countries enter therein too. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Prophecy. In this prophecy, the Messiah foretold that the people of the south side of Isreal would be led away captive into every nation. Or in other words, they would be led captive all around the world. Messiah's prophecy did not end there. He goes on to foretell of the regathering of these people on the south side of Isreal, of their redemption. And we can find this in the book of Luke, chapter 20, verse 25, which reads, "And there shall be signs in heaven, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth great distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts failing them with fear, and for looking after these things, which are coming on the earth. For the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass, then look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draws near." In other words, during a time of great distress, perplexity, and great fear, the Messiah instructs us to look up. Look up. Your redemption draws near. People of the south side of Isreal, this prophecy is tied to what we call the end times, the time of the return of our Messiah, the time when our Messiah returns and rules the earth for eternity. You should know this will be a time of great distress and trouble in the world, a time of great fear. However, just like all prophecies from the Most High, Heavenly Father, this must come to pass. There's no way around it. With that in mind, let's read the instructions of the Messiah of what we must do in these last days. Luke chapter 21, verse 31 reads, "So likewise, when you see these things come to pass, know that the kingdom of Elohim is near at hand. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass away till all be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. And take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness and the cares of this life, and so that day come upon you unawares. For as a snare shall it come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole earth. Watch you therefore and pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that shall come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man." The Messiah informs us to pray always. Pray always, that you may be accounted worthy to escape. Brothers and sisters, my prayer every day is that I may be counted worthy to escape the days of wrath, the days of trouble upon the earth. This is not the time for us to fear. You should know that during these last days, the Heavenly Father has a prophecy just for you. a prophecy that goes back over 2,000 years. I want you to turn with me to the book of Isaiah to read about the people scattered from the south side of Isreal, a people scattered all around the world. Isaiah chapter 43 and verse 1 reads, "But now thus says Yah, that created thee, O Jacob, and he that formed thee, O Israel, fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by my name. You are mine. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walkest through the fire, you shall not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon you. For I am Yah thy Elohim, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I gave Egypt for your ransom, Ethiopia and Seba for you. Since you was precious in my sight, you have been honorable, and I have loved you. Therefore will I give men for you, and people for your life. Fear not, for I am with you. I will bring your seed from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from afar, and my daughters from the ends of the earth. Even everyone that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. I have formed him. Yes, I have made him. Bring forth the blind people that have eyes, and the deaf that have ears. Let all the nations be gathered together, and let the people be assembled. Who among them can declare this, and who show us former things? Let them bring forth their witnesses, that they may be justified, and let them hear and say, it is truth. Yes, you are my witness, says Yah, and my servant whom I have chosen, that you may know and believe me, and understand that I am he. Before me there is no God formed, neither shall there be after me. I, even I, am Elohim, and besides me there is no Savior. I have declared and have saved, I have showed, when there was no strange God among you, therefore you are my witness, says Yah, that I am Elohim. Yes, before the day was, I am he. There is none that can deliver out of my hand. I will work, and who shall let it? Thus says Yah, your Redeemer, O Holy One of Israel, for your sake I have sent to Babylon, and have brought down all their nobles, and the Chaldeans, whose cry is in the ships. I am Yah, your Holy One, the Creator of Israel, your King. Thus says Yah, which maketh a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, which bringeth forth the chariot and the horses, the army and the power. They shall lie down together, they shall not rise. They are extinct, they are quenched as tow. Remember you not the former things, neither consider the things of old. Behold, I will bring you a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The beasts of the field shall honor me, the dragons and the owls, because I give waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert, to give drink to my people, my chosen. This people have I formed for myself. They shall show forth my praise. But thou hast not called upon me, O Jacob. But thou hast been weary of me, O Israel. Thou hast not brought me the small cattle of thy burnt offerings, neither hast thou honored me with thy sacrifices. I have not caused thee to serve with an offering, nor wearied thee with incense. Thou hast brought me no sweet cane with money, neither hast thou filled me with the fat of thy sacrifices. But thou hast made me to serve with your sins. Thou hast wearied me with your lawlessness. I, even I, am he that blotteth out your transgressions for my own sake, and will not remember your sins. Put me in remembrance, and let us plead together. Declare you that thou mayest be justified. Thy first father has sinned, and your teachers have transgressed against me. Therefore I have profaned the princes of the sanctuary, and have given Jacob to a curse, and Israel to reproaches. Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus says Yah that made you, and formed you from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, thou Jeshurun, whom I have chosen. For I will pour out upon him that is thirsty, and floods upon the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon your seed, and my blessing upon your offspring. And they shall spring up as grass, as willows by the water courses. One shall say, I am Yah's, and another shall call himself by the name of Jacob, and another shall subscribe with his hand unto Yah, and surname himself by the name Yisrael. Thus says Yah, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, and Yah of hosts, I am the first, and I am the last, and besides me, there is no Elohim. Well, family, there's a 2,000-year-old prophecy waiting for you. My brothers and sisters, fear not, for your redemption draws near. Yah willing, in the coming weeks, we will share some shocking truths which will show how the royal house of King David was pursued by Spain and Portugal and sold into slavery. If you ever wondered why the daughter of Babylon's judgment is so severe, then wait till you see what they did to the descendants of the royal house of King David. Well, brothers and sisters, thank you again for your support and your prayers, and thank you for sharing these videos with family and friends. Well, stay blessed, family, and also share this video with someone not in the truth if you can. All right, family. Well, stay blessed and shalom.
Okay. Yes. Wow. Wow. You know, the difference is we're listening, and we're listening with other ears now. Like in the past, these are sermons that we sat. I can remember when I was growing like a child, and I listened to them, and the images that I saw, actually I didn't relate to them, and so the word also did not relate to me. And I think that's the difference why it makes a lot of sense that we have our own teachers that did the research to make us understand where is our position, who are truly the chosen people of Israel. Just like any other history, this one is another one that we have to learn and unlearn the others. I know it's pretty hard, like I said. For those that have grown in the church to know things differently, to hear the scriptures and see absolutely differently. But this is a privilege of the chosen nation, and to understand that all this, we had a role to play, we had a part to play. Now, I also get some feedbacks that people are saying, oh no, this is going to bring us back into the slave Bible. You know, one slave in your mentality, you always think you remain a slave, even when you're free. But the one thing that I want us to open our heart while we start these lectures is to understand that who created the moon, the stars, the world, the rivers, the everything? I mean, our history didn't start that they caught us a slave and then brought us, and like the book or the new book is telling us now. And so who was and who is to come, that has been the God of our ancestors, the creator. Who? I think that's the main message, that when you listen to these messages or to this lecture, you open up your heart and know your ancestors did not create the moon, the sun, the stars, the world, the rivers that are flowing. It is the God of your ancestors. But who truly is this God? Yes. So over to you, Benayah. And
Yep.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
Sister Enie, you said something very profound. Very, very profound. Actually, a couple of things. One is the slave Bible. I'm not sure if users are aware that there was such a thing as a slave Bible. So as we were coming out, I'm sorry, as we were in slavery, and as usual, the Europeans were teaching us their version of Christianity. And this is one of the things I try to get across to people is that, so during the time of the New Testament, right, the head leader, I call it the leadership team of the church, was the Messiah, top. Then you have the apostles, right? Peter, Paul, Mark, Luke, John, all those guys. Those guys were running the church. They were the head of the church, and they were not Europeans. These were not Romans that were running the church. And this is so throughout the entire New Testament, that was your leadership team of the so-called church. And I call them Hebrew Israelites. People get mad when I say that, but Hebrew Israelites were running the church all the way from the Old Testament all the way from the New Testament. Fast forward to 325 AD to the time of Constantine, who's a Roman emperor. So a Roman emperor then makes himself the head of the church. This is a new animal. This is something that had never before been seen in all the scriptures, where a Roman emperor was then running and calling the shots of the church. And this is where the teaching of Christianity just goes totally left, right? And the Gentiles are running the church. And of course, this kind of goes right into history, because immediately after they take the control of the church, they turn around and then they start persecuting the Israelites. They start persecuting the sons of Jacob. Mm-hmm. And they persecute them through this institution called the Inquisition. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of the Inquisition. They persecute them through we call them expulsions, where they're literally kicking them out of Europe. And Most High willing, we'll read about some of that today. But the long story short is that fast forward to today, where we are getting our teaching from the descendants of the Roman Empire, as far as what church is today. What to do, how to do it, what this means, what that means, what's canonized, what should go in, what should not. We've never had Europeans or Romans tell us what should or should not go in the Bible. That was never in the scriptures, in the Old or the New Testament. But all of a sudden we have these, we call them church fathers, who are all European, descendants of the Roman Empire. That is a totally new animal. So I totally get why people get turned off. I hate using the word Christianity, but people get turned off from the way, from the way that's found in the scriptures. And it's because they mix or they confuse this Roman version that went forth in 325 AD with the version that's found in the scriptures throughout the scriptures, and it's totally different. Mm-hmm. And then another profound thing you brought up was this thing of a Negro Bible. That was a thing. Like even today, if you were to fly over to the States and go over to Washington D.C. and in the Smithsonian, they have a Smithsonian exhibit where they have a Bible, and it's literally called the Negro Bible. And what it is, this is the Bible that the slave masters taught the slaves. It's literally a regular Bible with all the laws, statutes, and commandments that the Most High gave Israel taken out. It literally has the redemption, the saving of Israel. Those scriptures were taken out. It also has the judgment that comes to these people that do all these hateful and nasty things to Israel. They took that out of the Bible. They packaged that up and then turned around and gave it to us as the Negro Bible while we were in chains. Like I said, again, fast forward to today, the version that we are taught, I guess the version of the Bible that's taught in churches is they include those scriptures in the Bible, but they don't teach it. They'll tell you that, oh, Israel's done away with. That's the Negro Bible. They'll tell you that, well, Israel doesn't matter. That's the Negro Bible. When we were enslaved, they took that out. We got our freedom. They put it in. They just said, no, don't read that. That doesn't have anything to do with you. You know, we're all one and the same. We're all equal. Don't worry about that. And which is contrary to what the scriptures teach about the this intro video that we were looking at. It teaches about the redemption of the children of Israel. I mean, it's it's almost like you go to a movie, and right before you go to this big movie, you run into your friend in the lobby just before you go in, and they give you the whole synopsis of the movie. Oh, you're going into the movie. Oh, let me tell you what's going to happen. Oh, well, this is going to happen, and that's going to happen, and then in the end, this is what's going to happen. You know, today we would frown upon that, and that's actually what happened. What the Most High did to us before all this scattering took place. He told us up front what was going to happen. He's like, all right, we're going to make this covenant. You guys are, you're going to adhere to it for a while. Then you're not going to do it. Then I'm going to have to punish you and send you out of the land, and you're going to be scattered, and you're going to be slaves. But don't worry about it, because eventually, I'm going to come back and rescue you. You're going to turn back to me. I'm going to hear you. I'm going to regather you from all the nations. I'm going to bring you back into your own land. And that's the key, is like bring you back into your own land. This is literally the land that your fathers own. And just like Sister Enie, you were talking about, it's like we have to kind of reprogram our mind and say, this is us. Like this has to do with us. Like literally, you have land. You have a plot of land in Israel today that is yours. Your land belongs to your people. And that's the whole thing, that when we tell people that we're Israel, they say, oh, no, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about that. I was like, yeah, but you still in my land. You still sitting on my father's property. So until that exchange happens, we're still going to be talking about this and talking about how we the people and that you're not the people and that you need to come out of my land. And then on top of that, you have to give all the stuff that you owe us back. And that's called reparations. And that's a whole totally new, different conversation. But just like I said, those are two profound things that the Negro Bible, that is a thing. Like if you go to the National Smithsonian, it's a big exhibit. It has its own exhibit called the Negro Bible with the law, statutes, and commandments taken out, all the promises that was due to Israel taken out, right? And that's what's taught in churches today. And it's like I said, it's very profound. Most High was working through it. But as far as like the whole history aspect of it, what I like to do is tell people, just like you said, I try to get their mind, try to change their mindsets, because it's kind of a toss up with me. It's like, all right, so do I start with the fall of Israel, or do I read all these old references that prove beyond a shadow of doubt that we are the people, right? Because I try to keep it basic. I'll read old books that say it. One, Israel was black. And these are books that you'll find in Brother Ron Dalton's books, Hebrews and Negroes. These are books that you'll also find, on my YouTube website. Most High willing, I'm going to come out with the bibliography, which is just a small book that has like all the references, a good portion of the references that we use to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that we are the people. And I tell people all the time, I did not write not one of these books. Because it's kind of funny, because when I brought this information out, I used to get people that jumped on my YouTube page and say, hey, man, you guys are culture vultures. You're always taking other people's cultures and trying to assimilate it and make it your own. Now it's like, whoa. These books are 100 years older than I am. Nobody walking around today wrote these books. These are written by your people, right? And all of a sudden you get silence, right? Because, if it's a European and if it's written, a long time ago, they don't refute that. For some reason they don't refute that. And that was one of the ways that we validated the information that that I put out. Put the information out. Let's see what people would say about it. Let's let all the scholars talk about it. And just to show you that this isn't a small thing. Like this is a major problem for institutions. Like, give you two examples. In the United States, we have a university called Florida International University. Hopefully I got that name right. And we have students, or a student that's working on his dissertation. So he's trying to get his doctorate. And so he's trying to put this thesis together, this body of work together to give to his department so that he can earn his PhD. And guess what he was doing it on? Black Hebrew Israelites. Oh man, so let's see what, and I was curious to see what information that he had to refute what was out there in the world. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've learned, like I said at the top of the show, was I've learned to look at the references, because most people when they pick a book out off the shelf, like they'll look at the summary, like I wonder what this book's about. So let me look and see. All right, and they'll look at the author's summary of the book. I'm different. I will pick up a book and I will go straight to the references, because I want to see what the foundation of that book is. Like I want to see what books that he used to come up with the information that he's going to put in this book. Correct. And it's a very simple check, mm-hmm. because when I open his references up, I look at the dates. And if I see like new dates on it, like, okay, 2000, 1900, 2000, 2000, 2000, and he's talking about something that occurred like 2000 to 1000 to 400 years ago, I know that he's going to be off. I already know that right off the bat. If he's using like all brand new stuff from people walking around today, I know that he's going to be off. But if I pick up a piece of paper and I see things like from the 1800, usually my model is the older the better. So from the 1800s, older 1700s, 1600s, whatever, 1400s. If I see a lot of those references in there, I know automatically what he's going to talk about. Automatically. So when I looked at this dissertation from this student that was working on his doctorate, and the first thing I did, I took a little highlighter and I saw, say, in anything that was in like, I would mark it out. Like, oh no, I'm sorry, anything that was new, I'd mark it out. Say, oh no, can't use that, can't use that. I marked out every single book reference except for two, except for two. And then I was curious about those two. I was like, well, if he's using all new stuff and he's got these old stuff, let me go and check out this old reference that he's looking at. And he didn't use any of the information about Israel being black in those old references. He used something like that was totally different, in that old reference. But long story short, this, like I said, they're taking this, they're having to deal with this in these universities of higher learning. And in his dissertation, he had problems. Not one time did he offer up an old reference that talked about the description of the children of Israel. And then when it came to the history of the Israelites being, we were talking about before, how that history actually started in Spain and Portugal and then kind of moved over into the States, he skimmed over that. And so, and that, to me, that was proof positive that this is a serious deal for these, for these academics, these folks in these schools, that they're having problems with it. And then one other example I do want to give you is, in Israel today, in Tel Aviv University, which is the largest university in Israel, they too are having to talk about this. They too are, in their research and their scholars are having to deal with this. They got people writing, they call it, they write these research papers and they'll submit it to their department for review. And so same thing there. Picked up his, it was another research paper. I picked up that research paper, looked to the back, looked at the references, and actually they had quite a few old references in there. I was like, oh, well, this ought to be interesting. Let's see what he's going to talk about. He or she's going to talk about, right? Open it up. All the reference, like oh, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
No, I was just, it's just a question that comes to my mind, but it's not really to my mind, but to the issue that this misinterpretation and understanding. For instance, if we look at the present day, there is nothing mentioned, and it's really hard for people, let's say people in West Africa or on the continent of Africa, to understand if they don't find the name of their country mentioned in the Bible. And so people literally would see Israel, just like the present day Israel, the geography and the setup. But what people don't understand, or what we never ever thought, was this map and even these countries today were not existing. When they came and they created, even to create the small histories, it means the book of the chosen people was has been existing for long. Now, when they came, they took out all that. and they went now into the colonization or the slavery on the continent. They took out all these names. So you understand why people on the continent or in Africa or staunch people would not believe the book, because they're like, oh, for instance, where are the people of Cameroon in this book? Where the people of Nigeria? Where the kingdoms of the, even though the Kush, you know? So it's kind of like, because they don't see the representation, and so it's hard to believe that it's for them or it's for us.
Yep.
But now you're going back to say, hey, but who are these people? Who are the people in these countries? They're the Bantus, they're the scattered people. Now we're just having other names and identities. And so if we don't identify, so it's very necessary and it's very okay that people just backing up and like, oh, this is not our book. It's not talking about us. We don't know it.
You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Brother Ron Dalton was on here, and he mentioned DNA. So that's, to me, like that's a starting point, because I here in the States, if you're like in court cases, when people are in court where they're being tried for a serious crime, DNA is so powerful that it can convict somebody, or it can be used to acquit them, right? I mean, it can set them free or put them in jail, right? And that's how much we trust DNA here. And so if you don't know, so DNA is a good tool to use to see if you are related to somebody else.
Yeah.
Like so back in the 80s, I don't know if you all watched any American TV, but there's a show called Jerry Springer back in the 80s. I know I'm showing my age, but back in the 80s, and they would use DNA to see if a father or a baby, a child was related to this father. And today we actually use it in the same fashion. So when we take so there's been studies done where if we take our DNA and then we compare that DNA to our brothers and sisters on the continent, what DNA researchers have found out is that we are related. We are one and the same people. And just how you were talking about, Cameroon and, all these other different places, they ran their DNA and they said, oh, look, well, this guy's related to that guy. And they're related to the so-called African Americans. And they're related to these Afro Brazilians. Now, how did that happen? And a profound thing with the DNA is that, we are able to use DNA to see if we have a shared forefather. Like if we go back far enough into our family tree, and we're not talking about going back very far, but if you go back far enough in our family tree, they can see that, hey, we have a forefather that's shared throughout all these people, throughout all these generations, right? And that's proof positive. That's one important key as to who you are when it comes to the scriptures, because the scripture says that Israel was descended from a single father, which is Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel. And so that's a really good place to start, where you can look at DNA and you just ask him, say, hey, brother, so why is your DNA the same as my DNA? If we're all these different nations and people, why is your DNA the same as my DNA? Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't know? Well, let's go and look at the scriptures. Let's look in the Bible. But you're absolutely right. Yeah, the Bible is our book. I mean, it is our book. And actually, one of the things I was going to say when we first got on was, this is a significant event, because for some of us that's on this live, our ancestors, this is the first time that our lineage, our ancestors have gotten together in like 1,000 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to think about that. It's like, some of us have been scattered over in the Americas and in Brazil. So we've been apart for over 1,000 years. And we, as being the people, on the planet today, we've totally forgotten about that. But, the Heavenly Father hasn't forgotten about it, right? Heaven hasn't forgotten about it. And so it's significant. It's very significant that we're on your platform talking and sharing, our history. But this is the first time for some of us that we've been together in 1,000 years. And like I said, it's not lost on me. I think, for some folks on the call, we may not know it, but this is very, very, very significant. But so as far as Africa is concerned, in the diaspora, I have to caution people, when we go into the history of slavery, of the church, that's another thing that's very, very dark. The history of the church. It's easy to get upset. It's easy to get turned off from the whole Christianity thing if you don't make the separation between the Roman version of Christianity and the true message that's in the scripture. It's very easy. And when people come into the truth, and that's why I'm cautious in bringing some of this stuff out. Like when we were talking about being on your show, one of the things I thought about was, and actually me and sister Rachel was talking about this, was like there's a lot of stuff that like you and me don't know. Like for instance, you'd be surprised that there's a mass grave sites, plural, in Europe, like in Spain and Portugal, with African bodies in it. Like, and people, your ancestors are there in those mass grave sites, and you don't know to mourn for them, to pray for them, to inquire about them, because that history has been hidden from you. But, and this is another thing that I don't want to keep shamelessly plugging Ron Dalton's books, but he actually talked about this in his movie, where he showed so there was a DNA analysis done on this mass grave sites of Africans. So you ask a modern day European, like, who's in those grave sites? And they say, oh, there's African folks from the Cameroon, from Congo, and all these other places. And the question is like, so why are they there? Like, why are they over in Portugal, hundreds of bodies? And another unusual bit of information about these Africans in Portugal in this mass grave site was that the method in which they were killed, like their hands were tied behind their backs, they had their feet bound, and their skulls were cracked open by a blunt object as if by a club. That's very interesting, because that's how the children of Judah, or the house of Judah, were killed in Portugal during the time of the Inquisition. So why do we find these African bodies killed in the way that they were terminating the children of Judah? Why do we have them in Portugal? And why does their DNA match the DNA of our brothers and sisters in the Cameroon, in Congo, and all these other places? And that's like I said, that's just one of the many things that we in the diaspora and our Bantu brothers and sisters don't know about. Like there's our blood is literally scattered like all over this continent, right? And this is why I believe like the history of Spain and Portugal and Europe is critical, because if you're listening to this and thinking like, well, that's there, that's not here, it's like, no. You have DNA, you have forefathers up there today that match yours, that they need to give you some answers for. Like that's your history. You just need to go and find out about it. Another thing that I'll just touch on, I won't go into a whole lot of detail on, is like, so during the time of the Inquisition, so this is a time in like Spain and Portugal where they were persecuting the house of Judah like nobody's business. Like they were just going crazy. And keep in mind, this was just before the start of the transatlantic slave trade. There were hundreds of thousands of Black folks in Spain and Portugal. And this is one of those things where, like, if we were given like an official presentation, like I actually do have a PowerPoint off to the side here, but we would literally read books of people, 100 years, 200 years ago, that said, these guys are Black. I mean, literally the descriptions that they gave was, they were swarthy, they were dark, they were Black, they were very Black, they were brown. Like every synonym that you could think of that means people of color, they used it for those people. And it had gotten to the point where it wasn't like it was a mix. Like sometimes you think, well, all right, so maybe there was some brown people and some white folks that were both Israel. It's like, no. In Spain and Portugal, it literally says they were all Black, like every last one of them, all Black. And it was partly because in those areas, they didn't mix. Like they were of a certain mindset that we don't mix with other nations. In those particular two countries, Spain and Portugal. It's like, no, we don't mix. We said we are of the royal house of King David. That was their mantra. It's like, we are the royal seed, and these are the people that came down into Africa, right? And so they didn't mix, and so when we look at the color of these people, we know for sure that's one of the things that, like I said, people have not refuted yet. With these references that we're bringing out, like, no, they are black. No, they weren't tan, they weren't light white, right? All these other things. It's like, no, they were black, and it said they were very black, like as in the very on the darker spectrum of the color spectrum. And then so aside from that, when you look at the history, like once you understand that and you start looking into this history, like just before the start of the transatlantic slave trade, you realize that there was like some major unrest that was happening in the two nations that kicked off the transatlantic slave trade. Mm-hmm. Like right before they decided to come around and start delving into Africa's business, into the Bantu's business, they were up in their own country. They were in the middle of fighting with the, I'll say it, fighting the Bantus in Spain and Portugal, because that's another thing. When they did that DNA analysis on those mass grave sites, they said they were Bantu. They said they were Bantu. So they were in the middle of, they did a couple of things. So when we were over in these European nations, this is where the Roman version of Christianity reared its ugly head. So this is where they decided to persecute the children of Judah. They decided to persecute the children of Israel. Like I said, by nobody's business. The whole premise was they wanted you to convert or to die or to be a slave. You had three choices, right? It wasn't a whole lot of wiggle room in that. And when they started persecuting the children of Judah, and they gave the ultimatum, like say, all right, so you guys got those choices. So what are you going to do? Many fled. Like many said, all right, I'm out. I'm not going to deal with this Roman version of Christianity. I'm going to leave all of my houses. I always feel like I fall short when I explain it, because you have to. One of the things that you have to realize that we were rich. Like Sister Rachel talked about the Moors in the Iberian Peninsula, but it talked about like part of the reason why they were jealous was because we were so rich. We had these sprawling estates. We had these large houses. I mean, they were working on our farms. I mean, to that point, and they were complaining like, these people think they're high and mighty, and we've got to do something about that, and we don't like them, and they're not Christians. So when the time of the persecution came, just before the start of the transatlantic slave trade, with these hundreds of thousands of people that are described in these old books as black, brown, swarthy, they were even called Negroes. We see that they were persecuted. They left. A lot of them fled. Some were actually made into slaves. So it talked about thousands of slaves in these countries, in the countries that showed up to Africa to start making slaves. They already had thousands of slaves, in their jail cells before the boat left the dock. And people don't realize that. And so they already had these people that were slaves in Spain and Portugal. And another way that we can prove it is in their own law. So when the transatlantic slave trade started in the year 1501, Spain had a law on the books that said, so if you want to send slaves over to the Americas, they have to have been born in Spain and Portugal. Like, it's like they have to be from here to go over there. And of course, they had to be Christian. It was like a twofold requirement. They had to make you a Christian, mm-hmm. and you had to have been born in Spain and Portugal. This is in 1501. Mm-hmm. That changed in 1518. So in the year 1518, they said, okay, well, instead of you getting them from Spain and Portugal, you can now take these brown bodies from the continent of Africa. Mm-hmm. And this is something that, Most High willing, we have a major announcement about that coming up this week. We're going to have a big premiere about it, and I don't mind spoiling it here for your listeners. But it's that for the first time in modern history, what we've done is that we went back and looked at the law. So if you can imagine a king and queen sitting on their throne, and he's giving his commands and decrees about what's going to happen in the transatlantic slave trade. And literally, like, so every single decree that he gave, they wrote it down. Like, it's in the book. It's locked up in the library. Praise be to the Most High that I want to say 2 years ago, some of these we call them ordinances, were released to the public for the first time. Of course, they're in Portuguese and they're in these other languages, but they have been released. I mean, with little fanfare over here in Africa, with little fanfare over here in the States. But that release was a major release, because for the first time you have a written record of the law or the decree that went forth from the king of from these European states as to why, why they're starting the transatlantic slave trade, as to why they're taking these brown bodies from the continent of Africa. It is in their own books. It is in their national library. And what you'll find out was that they were still, so like I said, if you back up a little bit, they were dealing with the children of Judah in their countries. They were persecuting them. They were enslaving them. They were trying to forcefully convert them. So this is like one single story. Like, people try to make out, what happened over in the continent as if it's its own chapter in the book, or as if it's its own book. It's like, no, this is the same book. The same book. The only thing we're doing is that we're backing up one chapter in the book to show you that just before the chapter of slavery, they had a chapter of slavery in Europe, and in their chapter of slavery, they were dealing specifically with the children of Judah. And it wasn't like it was a secret, like, oh, we persecuted you and we didn't know that you were Judah. It's like, no, they knew they were Judah. Like, literally in their law, the reason why they started the Inquisition was the king wrote down his petition to the Pope to say, hey, Pope, we got these children of Judah over here, and they're not converting over to Christianity like we want them to convert. Can you allow us to start this Inquisition? And the Pope would write back, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes he deferred in certain places. But eventually, in every last one of those nations, those countries, the Pope authorized it. He said, okay, well, all right, go ahead and start that Inquisition, and go ahead and persecute. And the reason for the Inquisition was to persecute the children of Judah. And another, like I said, one of the things that people don't realize is that, so one of the first places that the Portuguese came in and occupied, they would take the islands off the coast, and they would use those as a base, what I call a base of operations. So they would go to Cape Verde, which is a little, some miles off the coast of West Africa. They would go to Sao Tome, to Principe, and they would set up their base, because they were free to live there without being harassed by the people from the mainland. And bear with me just for a second, throat is getting dry. But so they would use them as a base of operations, and on those islands they would install bishops. So they would ship their bishops from Europe over to these islands. They would create these cathedrals so that they could teach the people that were sending over there. The people that they were sending over there were children. So in Spain and Portugal, in Europe, they were persecuting the Brews. If you can imagine, you had whole families. And of course, the fathers and the mothers, when they said, you guys need to convert, the people that were staunch, believers in Torah, they said no. They said a lot of them were willing to be martyrs. They were willing to die for their beliefs. So the Portuguese and the Spanish, they did something very wicked, but they did something very smart, in that they said, well, if we can't take the mothers and the fathers, and we can't turn them to Christians, let's take their children. So they had this thing where it's actually written in several books, where it was a violent separation. If you can imagine, it was days of separation, where they would have the Brews all corralled into this one place, And then you would have these officers of your European officers go through the crowd with billy clubs, dogs, all sorts of things, and they're violently separating the children from their parents. In one day alone, this happened to over like 2,000 people. And what I try to express to people is that let's say if you went back into a time machine and you were there when that happened, this would be a horrible day. I mean, you would literally have children screaming like you know how sometimes if you go out on a street corner and or if you go outside and you just listen to the ambient sound of just the background noise, the background noise that you would hear would be screaming of thousands of people. And the background noise that you would be hearing are the sounds of mothers crying, of fathers yelling, of scuffles, breaking out. And as they tore the children away, some of the fathers and the mothers were laying strewn on the streets, and they were taking the children, and they were what they were doing in 1492, 1493. This is done by King John II in Portugal, in Lisbon. They were putting them on the ships to send them to West Africa. They were going to send them to places. And I mean, some books are very graphic, and it talks about how just think about it. You have children, yelling, mama, mama, father, father. And as there's even as they're placing them on the ships, and the mothers who are on the mainland, hearing their babies cry, hearing their daughters scream for their fathers, or the sons scream for their mothers. And these ships are starting to pull out, they're starting to set sail. And there are books that talk about how mothers were in such a panic. They were in such, that they were just, even though they couldn't swim, they would jump into the water and try as best as they could against the tide to swim out to these ships. And it wasn't like it was just one. They said it was hundreds of mothers that did that. And eventually they drowned, and it talked about how their bodies had washed up on the shore. And this was such a major event that you can find this in almost like all the books that talk about, in Lisbon and this day of days, like writers all over Europe was talking about this. Like, did you hear about what happened in Lisbon? Did you hear about what happened in Portugal? Man, those people are crazy, right? And so, like, our history isn't like these. Like what I'm sharing with you today is not refute. They don't refute this. Like, people don't say like this didn't happen. The only thing they don't say, that they don't tell you that this happened to you. Like, they don't tell you that the Jews were persecuted in Spain and Portugal, or all this persecution happened in Spain and Portugal before it happened in Africa. They just don't tell you that this happened to you, like this happened to your forefathers in those places. So this is how they keep you separated from it. It's like, I try to explain it to people, like, if you have a puzzle, like your history was a big puzzle, and all the pieces were in place. Everything from the time that you're in Cameroon today, the time that you're identified as Bantu today, is all placed in this nice puzzle that's your history. And what happened was, okay.
Excuse me. I mean, you're just saying something, and I'm just living not 20 minutes away from one of these graves that you're talking about in Germany. It's just 20 minutes. And each time I drive by, I like, oh, the Jews, these are the graves of the Jews that were, and you have them in this patches of Germany where they really were. So do you want to make me understand that that's really my history lying down there? Because I look at it, honestly, I've read about it. We look at it as these are different people, these Israelites, these Jews, that the Holocaust and everything. And now you're telling me that their DNA matches my DNA. Is that what you want me to understand?
If it's an old grave site, so I'm not talking about people that were buried yesterday. I'm talking about people that were buried, 100 years, 200 years ago, when these atrocities took place.
Sure. And
to your point, and this is actually one of the things that we bring out to prove that we are the people. So when if someone passes away, or if an archaeologist comes across some bones, like, they can tell when they look at the skull what race of people they are. Like the Negro or the Bantu skull has a certain shape, and it's called dolichocephalic. And so what happened was they took a look at these skulls in these mass grave sites, especially for the ones that they say that, yes, no, these people there in those ancient grave sites, like, those bones are from the people of Judah, from the house of Judah. Like, we agree to that. But then when they go and take a look at it, and they took a look at the skulls came back as dolichocephalic. And so for people that don't know, like that'll go just right over everybody's head. But dolichocephalic is the shape of the Bantu skull. So, like I said, if you know these things, if you're familiar with these words these big words that they use to describe stuff, you'll say, oh, so you're saying that they're African. You're saying that these people are from the continent. And then, of course, you start to ask questions. Well, why are they here? And wait a minute, you're saying that these people are from the house of Judah. Wait a minute. So, am I from? In other words, you start to ask questions. But to your point, yes. If you look at the old grave sites on the analysis that they did, it comes back as dolichocephalic. And again, this is information that you can find in the Brother Ron's book. He shared it in his movie. I also shared on my site where I basically what I do is that I go back. I'm just grabbing the research article that they put out in their country, where they said, hey, we've dug up these bones of these old Spanish, Portuguese, or these Jews in Europe, and guess what? They're dolichocephalic, right over everybody's head. And I'm sitting over here, I was like, dolichocephalic, what? That name sounds familiar. I remember coming across that, right? And you look it up, it's like, wait a minute, that's a Bantu skull. Wait a minute. So yeah, like I said, the truth is out there. It's just that they don't tell you it's you. Like when they came out with that bit of information, it's not like they turned around and said, hey, people, Bantu people, guess what? These are your skulls. No. They just said that these are dolichocephalic, and they didn't even make the connection to Africa. Other than using that big word that nobody knows, they didn't make the connection to Africa. Mm-hmm. So that's why I say that your history is there. It's just a matter of just picking up the pieces, like, oh, okay, and inspecting that puzzle piece to see whether or not it belongs to you, right? But yeah. That's one of the things that if you come across an old grave site, I'll give you another example. So over in Portugal, like they have there was a massacre that took place. I'm gonna say in 1501. So 1501, there was a massacre that took place, and these were of the children of Judah, and King Emmanuel created a mass gravesite in 1515. I want to say 1515. I want to say it's called, and the gravesite is called Pocos de Negros. Pocos de Negros. But even in what they'll tell you is that no, yeah, they'll agree that those are African people. They'll say, yeah, no, there's a lot of people down there, and they're African people. Mm-hmm. But what they won't tell you that they were Jews. Like they won't tell you that when they write those articles in those papers, they'll leave out things like where it's located. It's located in the old neighborhood that the Jews used to live in. Yeah. They'll leave out like with the timing of when these people were persecuted. It was done when they were persecuting the people of Judah, right? So yeah, it's out there. Like I said, it's provable. But yeah, we just have to make the connection. But I'll pause here because I know I kind of rattled on for a little bit, but I just want to see if there's any questions so far as what I'm talking about. That in the message that I just want to get across to our audience is that your history goes beyond where you are today, and that's a fact due to DNA, like due to the blood that is running in your veins. This isn't something that Benayah is saying. This isn't something that Sister Rachel's saying. Mm-hmm. This is something that your blood that's running through your veins today is saying. It says that you have ancestors living in grave sites in these places that the Jews lived today, right? We have a single forefather that we all descend from today, that's living in your veins today. Mm-hmm. So that's irrefutable. That's not something that's really up for debate. You just have to figure out why. Why do we all have a single forefather? Why are my ancestors up in Europe in these mass grave sites? And I haven't even talked about the bone churches. These are churches that are associated with the Inquisition, because the Inquisition, what they did was that, like I told you, they were persecuting our people mercilessly before they showed up on the shores of Africa. Mm-hmm. Mercilessly. And just to show you how sick and sadistic these people are, there's a church called Bone Churches, and these are churches that if you ever get a chance, look them up. And these are churches that are tied to it's kind of hard to find sometimes, but if you look hard enough, they'll tell you that these are churches that are associated with the Inquisition, where they were terminating all these people. But then they have these churches that are where they have whole walls, whole rooms that are made with bones, skulls. I mean, it's one of those things that if it looks like a horror story if you were to look at it. And sometimes if you look close enough, you can actually see that the melanin that's still cleaving to some of the skin of some of these people that are hanging from the walls. And again, I ask people, I was like, if you knew that those churches were made from the bones of your forefathers, at the very least, you would ask some questions. You was like, why you have my people here making up the walls of your church? Why? And they even have like tours. Like if you go there today, you can actually go online and purchase a tour, because it's one of those things where people are so amazed that this happened. But you'd wonder, so now why are you merchandising this atrocity? This is an atrocity. This isn't something that you go and eat popcorn and drink a soda at, and take selfies in front. This is my ancestors. So like I said, there's the things that are out there. If you knew, you probably think twice about it, right? You probably, especially this version of Roman Christianity that our people have gotten. Of course, I mean, we've all been deceived. I came from a Christian. I was raised just like everybody else. A lot of people here in the States, I was raised a Christian. My father, he was got his teaching. He got his master's and his information, his degrees from seminary school as well. And also my wife's family side, they too are deep in this Christian establishment. So I'm not speaking to you as if I knew everything from the start. We were all in the same boat for many of us that was in the Christian establishment, right? But once I came into I came into the truth, and once a lot of people came into the truth, they wanted to run as far as away from this Christianity thing as they could.
Yes.
And that's the thing that I'm trying to get people to wait before you do something. I'm like, wait. You first need to know that like that version, that's not your version of Christianity. That's not you. But this Bible is still true. This message in here is still your message. It's just that you shouldn't have been learning from those people in the first place, because it's your book. It's your book. You need to learn, the Israelite way, if that's a way to put it. But people are running from Christianity, not knowing that it's their history. It's just that it's been twisted, and that it's been taught to them from a European standpoint.
Exactly.
They made all the black people white people. They made all the melanated people, the Bantu people, Europeans. So when we look at that, we don't see that as our book, and that's wrong. I mean, that's because the whole reason why we are here, like the whole reason why I'm here in the States, the whole reason why, if we have folks listening from Congo, whole reason why people are listening to Congo are in Congo. Whole reason why people are listening in Nigeria are in Nigeria is because at some point in time we were all together. Like all of our forefathers, we were all in one place. We were at the top of the world. We were the perennial superpower in the region around the world. People wanted learning, they came to Israel. People wanted to buy advanced things, they came to Israel. They came to where we were. But there was conditions for our forefathers to live in Israel. It's like whenever we didn't do what the commandments from the Most High, what he told us to do, because there were regulations and rules for us to be there. Like it's like, if you're gonna be here, I mean, just like your house, I'm sure you have some rules for your house, right? There were house rules for Israel, and our Heavenly Father said, if you break them, which I know you will, but if you break them, I'm going to kick you out of the land, and I'm going to scatter you all over the world into every single place continent, country, you are going to be scattered to those places. And so the whole reason why we are at the places that we're at today is because we didn't uphold our part of the bargain. That's the whole. I mean, that's the whole reason. And the part of the bargain that we were to uphold is in the Bible. And so part of the message to our brothers and sisters is, one, we want to let you know who you are, and want to let you know that it's not something that's made up. It's in your DNA. It's in these old books. It's in these old skeletons that are scattered all over the world and in European. I mean, it's at the point where it's irrefutable. It's just whether or not you want to believe it and what you're going to do with it. And then, so we want to wake you up to who you are. And then, so if you're wondering, all right, what do I do now that I know who I am? Mm-hmm. And this is where we point people back to Torah. We say that, well, if we want to get back, we have to do the things that the Father said for us to get back. Mm-hmm. And the prophecy is, and like the whole reason why, so Christianity will tell you that it doesn't matter. There's neither Jew nor Greek, there's neither bond nor free. There are all these sorts of scriptures people will throw at you. But the whole reason that, we try to share this message is that there's a prophecy, and this is part of the reason why we shared the video at the beginning, is that there's a prophecy that you have to fulfill.
Yes.
Like whether you believe it or not, whether you want to follow it or not, like this prophecy is coming down the train tracks. It's a runaway train and nobody's going to stop it. Like whether you put your head in the sand, this prophecy is on its way, right? And there's a prophecy about the daughter. There's a nation called the daughter of Babylon, and it's a perennial power. It's a superpower. It's a power that will be in place in the end times. And it's also a place to which of course, our people were scattered as well. But part of that prophecy, I want to say it's in Genesis. I want to say it's in Genesis chapter 15, verse 13. And you guys can correct me if I got that wrong. But it's basically the one that Abraham that's talked about. There's a specific prophecy that a group of his descendants have to fulfill, in that they have to be oppressed and enslaved in a certain place in the daughter of Babylon for 400 years. And that after 400 years, the next thing that has to take place is that the daughter of Babylon, which is a nation, will be judged. And then after this daughter of Babylon is judged, and then of course this great exodus takes place, this gathering takes place, and there's a whole series of events that happen after that. But what we're trying to do is prepare people for this judgment that is to come against the daughter of Babylon. And if you're wondering, all right, so who's the daughter of Babylon? Mm-hmm. Well, there's some scriptures that that we use to identify the daughter of Babylon. One, the daughter of Babylon is described as being the hindermost nation. The hindermost nation. That means it's the smallest nation, and also it's the last nation, or one of the newest nations to be formed, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, it's also described as a superpower. And this is why many of us point to America, the USA, as being the daughter of Babylon, because it was formed in 1776. I think we got some historians out there. It is the nation that came into power. It is a world superpower. Everyone wants to be in America. They want something to do with America. And again, if you're on the fence, you're saying, well, okay, well, those scriptures kind of sort of say, I can see it how you get that, but I'm not convinced that America is the daughter of Babylon. One of the things I point out to people, in 1619 was when the first slaves were taken from the west coast of Africa and from Congo. The Bantu people were taken from that region and brought over to the Americas, to the English colonies. That's the first time that Negroes, Bantu, were taken to the English colonies in the U.S. And so fast forward 400 years from 1619 to 2019, which was just last year, right? So we celebrated 400 years of being oppressed and enslaved in this country. And of course, if you, Sister Rachel told me about, I think you all had something about George Floyd, a program maybe a few weeks or so back. But you can see that's just an example of the oppression that we experience here in this country that has gone on for forever, right? But 2019 was when we hit that 400-year mark. And then amazingly, after 400 years, you know, it kind of started here in the States, but then kind of rolled out to the world. After 400 years, we've seen calamity after calamity. You know, we've had the coronavirus kicked up. We've had impeachments here in the States. We've had, you know, unrest here in the streets. I mean, you've seen the marches going on all around the world. You've seen the stock market crash, and all this stuff happen back to back to back to back to back. On our news stations here in the States, we've had like these news anchors. They get on. They say, "Man, I can't wait till 2020 is over. This has been a horrible year." It's like, man, I just can't stand. I'm just waiting for 2020 to be over. And in my mind, I'm like, just wait till 2020 is not over yet. And there's much worse stuff that has to happen. But the thing to remember is that after our 400 years, all this stuff kicked off as decreed in prophecy, right? As decreed in prophecy. And this is why we point to the judgment of the daughter of Babylon being in America as being something to prepare for, because if and when America falls, there will be ripple effects around the world, right? And if you're in the continent and you're thinking that this stuff's not going to come to my shores, think again, because this unrest, these wars, these viruses, all the bad stuff that's talked about in the Bible, as far as the things that will happen to the world, that's going to shake the world. Like, that's part of the whole point, is to get people to wake people up. Because right now I know that we have people on the fence that's saying, "Oh, no, I don't want to be Israel." Like I said before, this prophecy is a freight train. It's coming whether you like it or not, whether you believe you're Israel or not. It is coming. America will be judged whether you believe it or not. I mean, if it happens, you know where you heard it first, right? And all this stuff that's happening around the world, when it happens, what I encourage you to do is to press the pause button and think. It's like, wait a minute, like, all this crazy stuff is happening. Why is it happening? Okay, well, this guy with this black head wrap on, I do remember him on the Enie show. I remember him saying something about prophecy. Let me go back and look at this video. I said, yeah, okay, I see. He's saying that we're Israel. Well, let me go and pick up this book to see why things are happening and what I must do. So, whether you like it or not, it's coming. But I'll pause here, because I know, like I said, I tend to ramble for minutes and minutes and minutes. They have to. Someone usually in the crowd usually has to raise their hand and say, "Brother Benayah, 2 minutes."
It's okay.
Then I'll cut it short. So
it's okay.
I'll stop here.
Benayah, this it's coming. Like you say, it's a puzzle that is coming up. It's really coming, because if you said, and it is time for us people to understand. That's why I brought Rachel. Rachel is back here to share some images and also put a little bit of light. But what I want the audience to understand, from the way I understand it, I know I'm a slow person to understand, and I know my followers, particularly those on the continent, we need time, to understand some certain facts. And I always want to relate and give some clear cut and a picture for someone to have in their mind. For instance, if you say, we just need to think, what happened? Disobedience happened, and how can we fix it? Now, if you relate it to the 400 years that you're saying, we are all been asking questions. Why? Why did they even take us into slavery? Why are people persecuted? If you look at our descendants in the diaspora, they're the most that are abused in the prisons, their children, their families, in all this. This has happened in the sequence of this 400 years that you're talking about, and it's still rolling now. And you're saying that after that time, the prophecy told us that there would be an exodus of the movement of its people. And there would be a great awakening. And exactly, we're in the 400 years time, like you said, in 2019. And now the great awakening is now. And now we are learning the past and we're putting these two things together. It can't be wrong. The last thing, and like you said, and we've been saying, is a call to action, is what should we do? What is it that we need to do? But you see, even the wisdom from Yah and the prophecy is really coming in place by telling us we need to unite. We need to listen to the God of our ancestors and the creation. We need to obey. We need to love one another. Isn't this the same things that we're talking about? It is just because when it comes now in the form of a scripture, in the form of a prophecy, people are already, like I said, as you said, this kind of a Christianity that was brought to us, you either want to run away from the church because you keep hearing the same narratives and some words that make prophecy, end times, judgment. And because you've been taught to know the things differently, now knowing it from the point of view that it is my history, it is me that I was talking about. Now we see the reason, the need why we keep saying, and you're saying it, for us to unite, we need to go back to find what is it that we did wrong? What is it that we have to listen to the voice of the creation and know that all these graves that we've been seeing and they've been showing, we've never identified ourselves to it. Like, this is my history. This is me. This is my ancestors. We used to look like, oh, there were other people. Like I said, I've never, and today you've given this assignment. I will research it. Who are really these people? Now, another question was coming to my mind. Maybe that's the point that we need to research also. Benayah, if you have a point on it. We keep talking about reparations. And the issue of reparations and history, or what they've been telling us, that the Jews were compensated. And now we keep saying, well, why not Africans? Why not slave trade? Why not? So something is just coming to my mind as you're unveiling this light. Could it be the reason why they don't even give us a reason why a slave trade or African or our descendants need reparation? Because they thought that they were the Jews, and so we don't need it. You know, these are just things that are beginning to unveil. And I see Queen Rachel laughing as if, oh, is she getting is she just getting a work, or is this something? But I think these are kind of lectures when you focus on, normally, you have to start raising these questions. Your consciousness starts derailing you, particularly us in Europe, like you're saying, particularly me in Germany, where the history we know has a lot in these graves, in this. We've been seeing it. The Jews are celebrating this. Even a time where we see our the Chancellor Angela Merkel, they respect this. They go to these graves that's in Berlin, not the ones in the neighborhoods that we know. But now you're saying something I begin to like. But who are these people? And I need to start finding out now. And if you say this cause, we know about the Museum of this cause, and that you say they're the Bantu people, so they're my ancestors. Wait a minute. It's getting quite interesting for us to start know, how did we get here? Like you said, what is it that we did in the disobedience period? How did we get here? But one thing I keep hearing, and it keeps coming to me, that I want my people out there to understand, particularly those on the continent, is that now we're still in the Christianity that you're talking about, the Roman Catholic, the Constantine and stuff like that, deeply rooted in it. And so it's a revelation of a kind of an opening, a renaissance, now that we start knowing, oh, wow. So was it all about me? And I keep saying the slave Bible, oh no, they use this to enslave us, but who? You know, and now we're talking about we need to unite. But what is it that we must do to unite? And why is it that we're still not getting there? So are we not doing the right thing? Are we not listening to the voice? That's very interesting. I come back to you, Rachel. You had some very something to share with us. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just have some of the images that Benayah was talking about, because I think once you look at them, you're going to see the impact that these are your relatives, and they're ritualistically placed. These bones, they're used to build buildings in Spain. It's horrific. And then they charge money to go and see these things. It's prophesied in scripture that the bones of the descendants of David and Israel would be spread out under the stars. And this was part of the scattering and the punishment and the dry bones. So I just wanted to show some of those images. I also added scriptures into the chat. I don't know if people saw them, because people were saying, and you were asking earlier, and you can just show some of these images. I shared my screen and I'll flip through them as I talk. That people were saying, well, how come the countries in Africa aren't named Israeli names? And the truth is that they are named Hebrew names, because Psalm 104 says, and my people are called by my name, and my name is Yah. And there are no J's in Hebrew. All J's are Y. So my people are called by my name, which is Yah. And I put it in the chat. So there's Kenya, there's Zambia, there's Gambia, there's, so you have a lot of these names of African that have the name Yah in them, right? Because his people are called by his name. And even Abantus, that's the father's people of Abba. And so these are all of the cultural clues and hidden indications of who the true Hebrews are. And also the samba is another one of the Hebrew words that I understand is also used. But let me just share some of these images with you, because as you are actually in Europe, you can go and look at these images and rethink them yourself. In Germany in particular, they have so much of this history there. And so can you see this image right now? There we go. Okay, it's coming up. So this is actually, I believe, one of Gaudi's structures. And if you look at it very closely, this is completely built with bones. It's meant to imitate bones and skulls. Okay, skull and bones. Does that sound familiar? Here's another one. Let me see. I don't know why it's not coming up. Maybe I have to stop sharing and start sharing all over again. I'm going to do that. That'll probably work. So here is Gaudi's architecture, which is, this is not made with actual bones, but again, it looks like bones. It looks like something constructed with dead bones, an empire built on the bodies of the Hebrews. Okay. Here's another one. Let me see here. They're very disturbing and graphic. So I have to, warn you, I'm going to just have to restart another sharing here. And they're very ritualistically placed, because it is a form of witchcraft that was perpetrated against the Hebrews. And so this is them celebrating their victory of having murdered, having massacred the Hebrews. And these, again, are, Benayah mentioned that a lot of the mass graves had this DNA of the Hebrews. And when you look at the shape of these skulls, it's all very similar. It's the same people. It's a similar shaped head. I don't know yet if they've tested the DNA of these yet, but this is in the Eastern Europe. This is in the Paris catacombs. This is in also even in England. So this is them celebrating a victory of having defeated the Black Moors and having massacred them. Because who does this? You see the cross sitting there, and that's the Catholic cross. So that's the false religion of Catholicism and the religion of the Gentiles. And I know that you were just asking the question, and I'm going to keep sharing more of these as I talk. You were asking the question, what do we do now? And the way is to return to the ancient paths, to return to actually keeping the appointed times, keeping the festivals and feasts of Yasharel. Because the festivals and feasts that we keep now are actually Christian ones. They're pagan holidays. So they do not line up with the appointed times written of in Scripture. And all of the appointed times written of in Scripture point to the return of the Messiah. So what's coming up very soon now is Sukkot. And so they all have a particular significance. So Yah says, return to my way and follow me in Hamashiach, in my son. And once people start doing these things again, returning to the ways of Yah, then we will begin to get more and more power. We will connect again to our power. And Benayah's page actually shows a lot of the Hebrew nation building Shabbat services, Saturday Sabbath services, because really Saturday is the seventh day, not Sunday. Saturday is the true Sabbath, the true rest day that Yah outlined as a covenant forever. It will never end. It's not Sunday, but of course the Catholic Church changed it to Sunday because HaSatan reverses everything because he wants to be worshipped. But if you look at Benayah Israel's channel, you're going to see a lot of the Hebrews in America worshiping and calling out to Yah and calling for the nations to be judged. Now, Christianity has taught the reverse, that you don't ask for judgment, you just forgive right away. And this is what we see in the shooting of Jacob Blake. Black. So they're openly saying, Jacob is black. They're mocking you. Jacob is black. They shot him 7 times. 7 is heaven. 7 is the Sabbath day. Okay? And they're saying, Jacob, Israel, is black. And they're mocking you. They're putting it right in your face that you are Israel. And they have a woman come out and say, immediately she forgives and everyone has to be at peace. But the scripture actually calls for us to call for the wicked to be judged, for the nations to be judged. And there are many prayers of David which go into this. And so this is what you see Hebrew nation building praying, because we're not to go to physical war until Israel is back in their land. But spiritual warfare is what everybody's supposed to be doing. So praying, crying out to Yah. This is what you see behind me, pictures of people with the djembe, which is actually what the tabarets are in scripture, is actually these African drums. And the women beat them because it returns the sons to the sound of the mother's heartbeat. And it means gather, come together for war. And so they beat these drums, and then they call for the nations to be judged. And we're seeing all of these hurricanes and tornadoes and floods. All of these things is because of it's the judgment of Yah coming on the nations, but it's also we're agreeing with Yah's time to come and judge the nations. And of course, judgment starts in the house of Yah. So it will start with you. And this is why it's important that Israel returns to the ancient ways, continues to do the Sabbath, celebrates Sukkot, all of these things, but really understands the scripture and has the spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, the set apart spirit is what it is called in Israel. And this image is an image of a Hebrew being forced converted, by social pressure to the Catholic Church, to the false church. This is what happened to Israel. But this is one of these images from Spain. So I just wanted to share that. And I know Benayah has a lot more to add to what I've said. I put up some of the scriptures again about the 400 years being over, and that being the timing, that being the end. It's officially the end of the scattering, because you guys keep talking about the diaspora, also meaning your own people who are in Europe and sending back money. That is part of the scattering. But Yah is calling everyone home. So you notice with COVID, people started flying home because it is prophesied that people would return. And insofar as the Pan-Africanism is concerned and the uniting of Africa, there are people who are not the full seed of Israel, and there are people who are grafted in, and then there are people who are Hamites, the Nilotic, for example. But Yah calls for everybody to return to him. So I'm mixed race. You see me. I'm half Hebrew, half Gentile, although there's some question on the Gentile line that there's some other stuff going on. But But I chose the house of Yah according to my mother's bloodline and my grandfather's bloodline, because she was the only female, the eldest female born. There were no men born. And so that's what I chose. And this is what the people who are mixed with Ham have to do. This is the heart of Africans who want the Pan-Africanism, who want everybody to, it's really come into the house of Yah. It's not, let's all agree with each other's religion and be united on skin color. It's about, let's be united as the children of Israel, because you didn't go through all the suffering we've gone through for you to return to Egypt, a nation that enslaved Israel, or to return to Islam, a nation that is still enslaving Israel. You didn't go through all of this suffering, which was a reaping of that, if you're of those nations, in order for you to turn back to that once again. No, Yah allowed it to happen for the good of Africa, so that they would suffer under slavery, so that they could wake up as kings. And that includes the grafted in, but it's Israel first. It's Israel first. It's the Bantu's people first. The scripture is very clear about that. And that's what Hamashiach says. I came first for the seed of Israel. That's what Hamashiach says. I have come not for no one but Israel. And then it's Israel that goes and takes the truth to the nations as kings and priests, as the son, the firstborn son of Yah. That's what Israel is called, my firstborn son. So it's a kind of Hamashiach that the Abantus people are, kings and priests. And then the other groups are grafted in. So grafted in physically, genetically, spiritually, but it is Yasharel first. And it doesn't mean we return to these other things that we might be mixed in with because of the captivity, because of slavery, because of whatever's gone on. We don't go to those spiritual ways because that's how we lost our way. We have to, Yah is calling us to return to him, and it's only going to be a remnant. So not everyone's going to be like, okay with that. And that's what Yah expects. He allowed you guys, everyone, to get the corrupted scripture as a test, as a way to see if you would accept him on any terms. And so now this is the phase where you have to accept him in the truth as being taught by kings and priests of Yasharel. And so all of the lies we're dispelling and doing away with that enslaved you, and we're bringing back all of the truth. And so that's the season that everybody is in right now, is turning to the true word. And so the test was to be disinherited.
All right. Yes, I would have to go through the comments because there's some disturbing and some information that is I don't know. I don't know if people get confused. I also get confused, and I question this like, why would this have to happen? Now, I'm just going through all the questions from the chat so that we can also get the impressions of what our listeners and what their thoughts are, how they feel it, how they see it, how the question is. It is the right of us. We're a community of guest speakers, lecturers, chat, comments, and so constituting all this whole company. So constitution, all this whole talk. So we've listened to the lectures and the comments in the chat. I'm sure some of you have also seen it, but also I still have to go through some like Lawrence is saying, I do not support the prophecy that our ancestors were disobedient and slavery was the cost. Oh no, I'm sorry. And that's what he says. And then again, he said, I will never agree the legalization of slavery and connect it to God's will. Why should it be us? And why should we have to, when God gives us the power and we obey when we're doing everything according to his will, why would it be that he needs our permission to for us to go back to his ways that he of course is the one that has put us through? Those are the impressions coming. And then Hubert said on the reparation, I think that was because of what I mentioned, that I asked the question that I threw out there, and Hubert was like, our reparations would only be paid after their punishment, like you said. All right, they would have to be punished. So it becomes of coming in this situation where we say, but why were we punished? And the issue is we were punished because we disobeyed, according to what the teachings about all the scriptures. Now, but he said, okay, I'll take you into the land of Babylon, but they would be punished after the 400 years. So we expect to see the punishment or the generation or the legacy that is coming back. But then comes a question of, again, or another condition of, if we return. Now, the questions that people keep dropping, and like, how? Is it us that control the creation, or he controls us in the way he wants? If he gives us out into slavery, and because we disobeyed, so that was his will, and now he's taking us back after 400 years and still put another reason for us to be accepted. And what if we not? So we're going to continue to stay in that. Those are the impressions that are coming. And again, there's this one: stop this. Slavery was against our ancestors' will. And of course, I know that you're also reading that, and it would be a kind of an opening for us to address these issues. Now, I'm not really only conversant with the lectures, but I think some people here are saying we believe slavery was evil, yet why believe it was prophesied? Scripture says Ham was cursed by his father. Does not mean Africa was cursed. Now, I think that's the question for us to understand: who was actually Ham, and why was he cursed, and was he African, if it comes into this. So I think these are all the kind of, I'm just choosing the ones apart from those that are saying, okay, yes, now we understand the history that was hidden from us, but I'm taking the other controversial or the open questions that people want to understand why it's like that. And Rowan says, Noah cursed Ham's son of the Canaanites. That was Ham's son named Canaan.
Yes.
All right. Then Lawrence says, it is sick and not a prophecy upon Africa. This is the works of the darkness that was. It should have been us. It should us that should suffer. Why would Yah create his people, put them into this kind of punishment? And again, is asking for this. And whatever again should we hear here? Otherwise, I'm taking the comments of those that ask me to push their comments forward because they are in a position where they cannot call directly. But if you are in a position where you want to call and address this question, we are. And remember, please, being here on the Pan-African Daily doesn't mean that somebody's here to how do I want to say, dictate this knowledge out for us. Knowledge means there is a presentation and a research that I've gone through it. Now, there are two ways to go about it. We listen to the lectures. Doesn't mean that I agree with the presentation at hand, but it gives me an opportunity to do my research. Second point, if I have also an experience in this topic that we're treating and that may be different, I would like to share and ask questions like, yes, but I know it this way. And I didn't. Third option is I know nothing. I'm hearing for the first time that they were even slaves before where our history is being taught today, that they were blacks in Germany or in Europe, even before the transatlantic slavery. Now, in these books, they are out there and the reference is all out there. Sorry. So it is either now I say, I don't know, and I want to know, and I do a research. But I think the other aspect that we don't want to go into this ancestral knowledge is to completely disagree when, number one, I haven't done a research. Number two, I don't have an experience about it, apart from what I know. Number three is just, all right, let's just leave it. Let's just leave it. It's all the past anyway. Now we don't have time for it. Now we just have to go. We're going to make the same mistakes that we don't know our history, and people will keep keep telling us what we should know. So that is an attitude. I think I call it a lazy attitude. It's also okay. That's why some people are called to be the lecturers. Some are listeners, some are researchers, some are questioning, some are critics, and all this comes in to feed a whole complete puzzle. We're not here to impose anything on anybody. I'm also learning a lot. I'm taking down my notes, and these are all things that I have to go into now and research, particularly this history. It is mind blowing because why? Everything that we know has been packaged, carefully packaged. So it is time for us to unravel. And unravel doesn't mean that another package is going to come to us where we just say, okay, yes, now somebody just took his time. Benayah, Rachel, Ron, and all these teachers, they took their time, research, put out all this stuff here and come and we say, no, without me giving a backup and a fact to it. I think a fact upon fact. So for me to say, no, I don't agree on this, I want to give a fact to it and say no, because like the comments that are coming up. And that's the way I think I saw even also in the ancestral knowledge of a forum that I follow very well, the ancient times, the ancient ways of the African people and the Bantus and stuff. And they keep saying, now it's a new way of learning. We are unlearning the past, but then we should also know the format, how we want to learn, not still to be trapped in some other knowledge that we don't know. And I just gave us the 4 pillars where I think it helps us better to know. No one is imposing and saying, I disagree with this knowledge, but you have to follow my own knowledge. That one, we're completely on the same page. But I think the teachers are here to say, this is what I found out after what I've been seeing. So it is up to you now to say, okay, now I have 2 options. I have listened to the modern day Christianity and all this wrap up that they gave. But I also still were having questions like, but why? I kept asking, why would God allow this to happen to us? If truly you're a powerful God and you're a God of your people and you created us, and we cannot even define what we do today. All of us are saying we are on a journey to rebuild the Africa we want or to bring ourselves together. We're saying about our own little powers, but we know that there's the overall power that controls all this thing. And without this power, me and you will not even be sitting here and talking. Me and you're going to have a mouth, and our journey is still not even certain where we're going to that he has for us. That is the overall power that at certain times when we question, there has to be some kind of humility in it. I'm so really always concerned not to make some kind of judgment in the extreme, because of course I know that we have a God of creation of our ancestors, and the way I see is the natural things that has been happening, like you're talking about the plagues, like they kill and murder us in daylight, and even right now people are even seeing it. These issues that you talked about, crossing the boat, we have a special artist from Brazil that also made a very good presentation about the boat people. Now we saw, like Benayah was saying before even, and then we see in the modern times where they came and said, no, it was the transatlantic, the boat people. But of course, today, what are we seeing happening? Crossing the boat. These very women that she was saying, they were wailing and crying with their children. Isn't it happening today? And isn't it happening at the very borders of Spain and Italy? Aren't we seeing women dropping out their children in this boat, crossing through the Libya, crossing through the borders of Spain? What is strange? Is it just a question of we have to go back into the past to argue? What about the present? What about now? What about today? And I think for us to actually, I want to open up this clearance because it gives us a broader approach. The teachers are speaking from the research. We're speaking from even taking the modern days. We're still talking about the boat people to today. People, open up your eyes. It is happening every day. We are going to get even into this aspect. I prepared some presentation and the borders and videos that we see on the net, but you can do your own research. Just put the migrations of Africans now and why are we dying at sea, and look at the same images like the ones that Rachel is showing. Is it a different thing? It is the same. Women dropping their children at the seas, drowning, wailing, and means our ancestors dropped at the oceans. The present day's transatlantic dropped in the oceans. And today even, now I begin to ask myself, prophecy, Exodus, we're coming again. What is this kind of transition that is going on? It isn't it time that we should be going back. Something is just not adding up. We're missing something that we should return back to. That's just my opinion. But your opinion should also guide us. And your opinion means research, bring facts to learn us, not just disagree, not just criticize, but bring facts that all of us can look at this perspective. We want to look from all the directions. That's why we're coming in different pieces: culture, history, religion, spirituality, business, investment, everything. It's a puzzle of what makes us a unique people and our history. And this is part of it. We cannot disagree more. So, like I said, I just threw that out there. I don't know, and I don't think that these are things that we are going to come out with it today, because the teachings are going to continue. I don't know why, but because of this schedule that we have is so stretched out. A lot of people are here. We would have to put a format. We're still thinking about it, how we're going to divide this so that we get this puzzles all together. We want to know also about are people in the Haiti. A lot of them have been writing to me, like, Susan, when we talk about our history of Black people, we only talking, most of the time, people are only talking about the Black Americans and the Caribbean, but they're not talking about the history of the Black people in the Haiti. And now we have speakers that are coming up on board to also talk about, you know, their history there. The moment we get all these puzzles gathered together, and then we're going to see that who are really we? Who are the Bantus? Who are the people of Israel? Who are the Negroes? Who are they actually? And who are we? So I look forward for you to do your own research out there. And when we're coming up with all these things, we put them all together, and so that we can get a sense of direction. If not, it's still the conversation, it's still the confusion in our minds. It's still the open questions. But because we're on learning, we need to have this pattern of humility, research, ask a lot of questions, of course, a lot. I appreciate you, Lawrence, pouring out your questions there. And I still see a lot of people saying, so the Noletics are not Israelites. And that's what ML is asking. And James is saying, we're grateful for the season of truth. Of course, we should be grateful at all times. We've still in this cloud. There should be a way out that God, the God of our ancestors, has prepared for us. And if we don't follow this, we'll still be coming up and dying in these oceans, and still dying in the same modern day Atlantic slavery. But the ones that some people are even analyzing and saying we pay now for it. So it's so worse, like we are even paying to die now in these oceans. It's not like they are bringing us, but it's because of the brain drain, the mindset, the stories, the fixing of the picture as the paradise here, and then you run away from your original paradise and are dying. And now we even pay for it. That's even more painful. Money that our people should be putting into businesses out there. And that's why these lectures are so important, people. Let us just not just close up our heart, but it's everything that God is bringing us together to understand. I am not even with it. I still have to do my own research to see. But the question I keep asking is that it's so painful. Why we keep saying these things and they keep happening in our modern days. And even now we pay for it. They don't even bring us, but the minds of the slavery are still into our own head, that now we pay to cross the oceans and die there. Why? Why? These are all questions. Benayah?
Yes, I'm here. But yeah, I mean, to your point, as far as like the information going forth, keep in mind, what I tell people is that this is, you know, we're just putting, to your point, we're just putting this information out there, right? And it's up to, and I encourage, actually, when you know, me and Brother Ron were doing a whole bunch of conferences last year, you know, and also on my YouTube channel, I stress and tell people to do your own research, because I don't want people to believe what I'm saying because of me. I want you to believe it because you took the time out and you read it for your own self, that those references and that information said what it said it did, right? And that at the end of the day, you know, your awakening will be between you and the Most High Yah.
Yes.
You did mention something that was, and I do appreciate the question as far as, you know, why is all this happening, and the Most High, he's all, you know, he's all powerful. Why did all this stuff happen? And this is where you see a lot of our brothers and sisters bring up Deuteronomy. I mean, basically, it's like it was a choice. I mean, the Heavenly Father put this choice in front of you. It's kind of like he put two plates in front of you.
Yes.
All right, which plate you going to eat? You're going to eat off this plate. If you eat off this plate, blessings all around. You know, you'll be blessed in the city, blessed in the field. Everything you do will be blessed. I will destroy your enemies for you. You will live in peace. You know, you name it, you will be blessed in every aspect of your life. But if you eat off of this plate, curses, you know, all these bad things will happen to you, including slavery, including, you know, you will be shipped around the world. You know, you will be oppressed. You know, you will be persecuted, all these bad things. So it's not, you know, it's not for us to say, you know, why did he do it? It's why did we do it? Why did we choose this plate of curses? Because we didn't want to do what we didn't want to do what he told us to do. And so that's where I, you know, kind of point people to, you know, you can actually, I mean, you can read it in Deuteronomy 28, where it lays it out clearly as far as like the blessings and the curses, and, you know, which one will you choose, right? But also I like taking folks to Deuteronomy 30, which tells us that's the blueprint of, you know, of what it will take to get back. Because basically he's telling you, like I said at the top of the show, it's like a movie where somebody's, you know, the Heavenly Father's telling you what the movie's going to be, and, you know, the beginning of the movie and what the end of the movie is going to be. And Deuteronomy 30 is also a message as to what we must do in order for us to get back. And so that's the blueprint that I tell people. Go read Deuteronomy 30, because it says if you go back, then all these other things will start happening too. So yeah, so I appreciate that. That's actually an excellent question. But it is a choice. At the end of the day, it's a choice.
Yes.
And like I said, and to your point, you know, I don't really try to force feed anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I don't try to get people to you know, to, like I was saying before, believe to just believe. I just want to put the information in front of you. And so at the end of the day, you know, like I said, this prophecy is going to happen whether you believe it or not. So if you choose to cross your arms and fold your feet and decide to, yeah, I'm not going to believe nothing, and I want to, you know, continue on the path that I'm going, fine. It's just that, just be aware, because I'm just the person that's warning, just saying, hey, you might want to check this out before this prophecy lands in your front yard.
Absolutely.
And this is, while you have the time, go and check it out. You know, but if you don't want to check it out, that's on you. So that's my thing.
Benayah, just hold it there a little bit for a point of clarity on this. It is very evident, and Rachel already said it, that you would also have to get an opening so that you learn, because all of us are put on this journey for one purpose or the other. And so, like, I just want to consider that. But the basic things that always come, that I want to put it and relate it, because probably what I see is that when we say, when was the time that we disobeyed and these curses came onto us, and what is it that we need to do? That's the blueprint. But these are teachings that you'll be going ahead and taking us along. We can pour them here. But I want to put, I'm still stressing on the modern times, because I think this generation is seeing the modern times. And when they see the modern times, they should understand the signs. And now when they see the signs, they relate back to where we fall. Exactly, this is the point. Now, one of the things that we need to know as the generation of this time is, for instance, let me take it on a basic level, which is what would translate us to understand. Why is it that the need for good governance in Africa is so difficult to achieve? Doesn't matter whether they were there's a part of our leaders that are being in our image, isn't it? When we're putting it in image. But why is it that something is just not still right? Those are the incidents of modern, I think, day to day that makes us relate to all these lectures that are putting. That's the way I want to see it. That's the way it facilitates me to open up, to begin to say, we've been asking a lot of these questions, but what is it that we didn't do? But another fact that is evident of the fact that if we don't return back, we are never going to succeed. It's just what I said. Why are our young people leaving the continent to join us into even the land of slavery? Why? Why is it that even when we explain, because I know a lot of us diaspora, particularly the migrant diaspora, that we keep saying, no matter how you say, this is not the truth, what you see here, oh, please, everybody has to come make that experience and start being in a situation after 10, 15 years to say, oh, if I knew. But what is it that when we explain, it is difficult, this knowledge that is hidden between us? Third thing is, now we are seeing it on a day-to-day basis that if we don't unite, and the inability for Africans to unite is there. We did. There are solutions that we're looking for this blueprint to see what is it that unite us, what is the knot that we have to get to that point that now we say, oh, we understand this is how. We're talking about love among us that doesn't exist, not even just the others. We're talking about supporting each other, supporting our platforms, supporting our knowledge. Why is it that it's still even difficult, as Benayah is saying something, and my brain keep telling me, oh no, it's not, resist it. But if it was maybe a white Caucasian that was here telling me this thing, I would just be accepting, yes, it's the truth, this is the way. What is it that still makes us not accept what is our own reality? Even our own teachers now are telling us the truth. What is it? These are all the things that I think would help and guide us, dear listeners and followers and viewers, to begin to know the truth. And like the truth will set us free. So if we have teachers and brothers and prophets and prophecies that where you didn't do this, you're suffering, you're still not doing it, you're even going to suffer more. And so the need for us to unite, the need for us to love one another, the need for us to support one another, the need for us to build our nation again, start with unity and love. And what is so difficult? Is it not the same things that we're looking for? Is it not why we gather here saying we're looking for our own solutions? And now when the solutions are coming, what is it that makes me not still believe? What? So these are things when I personally, from my experience, ask myself, then I begin to know there is just still something that we're not doing. And I appreciate that. And I will look into it and say, yeah, this is the truth. This is the way. And I have to follow. But that's my experience anyway, like I still said. Make your own experience. Bring us your experience on the table. Do your own research. At least we are grateful that we have prophets now, that we have people that have taken time and did them presenting it to you. So it's not in our position to say, oh no, I don't agree, I don't do this. It's in my position to say, all right, fine, really? Now let me find it out for myself. Because wisdom is given to all of us, except you're lazy, except you're just here to distract, except we're just to contradict, means we're still the opposite of the other people that have been born by the slavery mentality that are still trying to put a blockage on our unity. Then we should begin to think, but in humility, in love, that he wants to build us is for us to listen, quietly research, and he would direct us in the way of the truth. I'm concerned now about the way forward and about the blueprint and about where can even individual lectures follow you, Benayah. We already knew about Ron gave us his platform where he is doing all these teachings. Rachel also, we know his series and what she's focused on. Benayah, you're new here today. Where, apart from us getting you to teach us here, where is it that when people want to get more knowledge, they want to get one-on-one with you, they have questions even to direct? I think that's also another one point that that we keep emphasizing here. Like now we're on the journey of learning. So if I have a question that I think might distract some other person into thinking in my own way, I better keep it to myself, and I go on one-on-one with the teacher and I ask. And so the attitude of maybe me just posting something that would cause other people to think like me, I think we should avoid that. We can share our opinion, what we think is not right. But if I have a deep question that I think might distract the others, which is my personal opinion, I think the better approach is to get one-on-one with the teachers, ask these questions directly to them. And so you can then, now, if it is an argument or a debate that you want to put out there, that's the right way to go. But the general rule should be that I want to get on personal. So when people want to get personal to you, to get more, to get deeper into the subject, to ask you some kind of questions, get reference, where is it that we can find you?
Yeah, probably the best way is email. I know there's a right now, because we are in the Great Awakening. I am behind on email, but that is Benayah, Benayah 4, the number 4, Isreal at gmail.com. That's Benayah, Benayah, the number 4, Isreal.com. So that's a good way to just at least put it in the queue. You know, right now I'm behind because usually I put out like a one major video release. I guess the cadence now has been probably like a month or two, but usually like right before a release, I get way behind on email because I'm trying to focus on that to try to get it out the door. So, and believe it or not, I just got one out the door this weekend. At least it's done. I'm actually waiting for a music track from a friend, but it's done. So I now's the time for me to catch up on emails and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, if you all have questions, yeah, just send it that way. Just like I said, just give me some time to catch up because I know I'm behind, and then yeah, you just answer any questions you have.
Yeah,
I also put in the links for his channels.
Yes,
and webpage.
Oh,
exactly. Exactly. That was what I also wanted to ask, like your channel, your videos, because I know like we also had them from Ron. And please, like, just for general input and general concern, some people also asking, like Ron was talking about his videos and that we should share the trailer here. We're looking also at the guidelines of YouTube, and we don't want to lose us being here again like we did on Facebook because of something. So we're very concerned about certain content and particularly videos that would have copyright on it. Please make sure we prove it. I'm not saying only to the lectures, I'm talking about to us generally. And that's why you see we are not a media that we just produce videos, YouTube videos, pick people's videos and just put. We only produce what belongs to us that we've done in our previous talks, or people that we think there is a knowledge again to reshare, like Maponga Joshua. Now we've been talking about Rachel, Ron, and now Benayah and Rutendo, and these are authentic and original people that we know. Their videos are for us, and they are also our lectures. They are also our people, Dr. Arikana and stuff like that. But until they give me the permission, until they give us the permission to say, take out this video, we're not just producing all these talks and bringing them here. Remember, we are for education, information, changing our narratives, knowing our history, to rewrite our own history by ourselves. And so if we are the greatest nation, it is only the good thing for us to do. And so we start recommending also the mindset of teaching and learning. What is the guardians? Who should we look up to now? What is it that we need to learn? And that's why these YouTubes and these videos are very important for us, because as of now, until we get a channel, we are still on this group. And so we're really being careful. And to every opinion that is shared here from the guest, it's just it doesn't reflect the general opinion of us. It is just the opinion of the person, and it is in terms of education. And education means it's a research work. So nobody owns the autonomy of knowledge, over knowing, apart from apart from our creation, apart from and he gives us the authority to talk and to do this thing. So please, it is very important that all of us get to work. All of us get to work, bring out useful information that, even with the teachers that could support also their work. And also we push them. The moment we don't support their work, we don't share these videos, we don't appreciate this content, how do we think that we'll get unraveled in all this wrapped up of all these centuries? So I think it is a new spirit for us, the Bantus people or the Israelites, to cultivate, to do more research, to bring more, to add to what we have, and also to take out what we think, right now, we don't need this. This is what we need. This is the way forward. And I think that's a new spirit that we have to cultivate to get to the blueprint. But of course, the blueprints are still coming. Rachel? Yes. I see you just smiling, Queen. I just all the time. It's good.
Yeah, I just enjoy this so much. I'm just so grateful to Yah that this is happening. I just wanted to just address, on my site, I keep posting things as Live Light Well. So if you want to go, I have a lot of videos on there. I obviously posted several times Benayah's website and his channel. And if you want to do Shabbat service, there is a regular Shabbat service on his channel as well. Okay, but the teaching is very elevated because these are the teachers who are going to come on later and lead everybody from the beginning through to the end. And they're kind of at the high stage right now. So some people may struggle with it a bit. But nonetheless, it's there. But his videos are there, just if you're seeking to educate yourself. But I did want to address two things that you were points that you were grappling with, Enie, and that was why are our leaders so concerning? And one of the things that we're really going to have to face is the fact that it's difficult. We've been fed this propaganda of Pan-Africanism, of everybody is the same, the Gentiles are the same, and that includes Ham as well. And it's Israel is Israel. And the uncomfortable reality that people are going to have to face is that one of the worst enemies that Israel has is their own brother, Esau, who is ruling the world right now. So a lot of the African leaders are actually your enemy. A lot of them, not all of them, but some very specific ones are Esauians. They are the brother of Jacob who enslaved him and who is running the world right now. And so this is why, you can send out as many appeals as you want to them, but their agenda is not to free you. Their agenda, and this is not all of them, I don't want to generalize, because on an individual basis, there's a lot of people who don't even realize that this is who they are. But there's a lot of people in leadership do know who they are. And so when you're looking to unify purely on a racial basis, in your own house, in the house of the seed of Abraham, Isaac is your worst enemy, Esau. And he is the end of the world. He's currently running the whole world right now. And that is the arch enemy of Israel. So when you're looking to your leaders and you're pleading with them to change, why do you have to buy a penthouse in Europe and hide your money in the Swiss bank? And why do you take all of money in boatloads from Nigeria to America and stick it in banks? These are Esauians. These are for example, the Fulani, Buhari. These are the Ishmaelite and Edomite descendants of Esau and of Ishmael, who enslaved Israel in the past and are part of the slavery today. So when you're pleading with them as your brother, which they are your brother, and Yah is going to deal with them, trust. It's not the right direction to head in. The other aspect of this leadership issue is that originally, as I said on the first broadcast, Yahuwah called all of Israel to come up the mountain and become priests and kings, and they refused. They said, no, Moses, you go up the mountain. Weird, we don't, that fire and smoke and all that. No, we don't want to have to do anything to do with that. And also they desired kings And they always, this is the habit. If you look at the people of Israel, they're always looking for leaders. When Yah wants Israel to look to him and to look to HaMashiach. He came in the flesh, so you could actually have a man, a literal brother of David, a person in the flesh with skin on them, to call your brother and to worship as a king and a priest. And so this is one of the reasons why HaMashiach came. It also came for salvation and covering of sins and as the lamb. But this was your literal brother that you're to look to as your king, because Yah saw the hearts of Israel, that they wanted to worship a king and they wanted to worship Yah in the flesh. And so this is what HaMashiach was. But this is the heart of Israel. They always want to worship a person. They always want to look to their leaders and go, what are you going to do for us? And this is what, this is what happens in America. There's all these black, what they call boules, who rule in America. All the celebrities are inducted into this, not all of them, I can't generalize, sorry, but a lot of the leaders in America are Isarians, or they're inducted into that world to turn against their own people, okay, and lead them into unrighteousness, like you see in all the rap videos, and you see in all of these examples of prostitutes and all, and just negative images of African Americans in media. And this is also taking place in Africa. Same thing.
Rachel, please just hold it there. I want you to I want to throw light on this, because this is very important what you're saying. Hold it there. This issue of leadership. And it's the same thing that even in the book he said, don't look up to man, because man is gonna fail you. And then the reason why we keep really always thinking, because leadership is very important. That's one of the most important things that we know. And now, if we have a leader, the almighty leader that gives us the direction and the rule to function and to lead, and we turn away and we look into this imagery, this man-made leaders, and they keep just doing only the old things that we say, selling us to Europe, doing contracts with them that are against their own very people. And all of us keep complaining on that same leadership. Oh, our leaders, there's the need for new leadership. But we're still not getting the point to say, is this not just the image of leadership? That's why I wanted to just throw a little bit of light in this so that we understand better what is it that you're saying, that we're looking forward to role models in the nature of people that may be super rich. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. Why not? If you bless them, it bless them. I'm not questioning. But this kind of leadership that we've all drilled to look at, and that we're looking for the new Israel, or for the new promised land, are we really going to achieve it when we're still looking at the same issue? What do you call them? This kind of leadership. They're just doing the opposite, isn't it?
Yeah. And even, the Chinese, for example, you were talking about the curse of Canaan. It was Canaan who was cursed, not Ham. Okay, so everybody needs to understand that. And Ham was grafted into Israel first through the various women that the men of Israel married. All of the patriarchs, except for Isaac, had relationships with Hamitic women. So that was the beginning of that grafting in on a genetic level. Okay, so to say Ham is cursed, certainly not. Okay, but what happened was Canaan was cursed. Okay, this was one of the sons, offspring of Ham. And who is Canaan today? Canaan, if you look at the genealogy in Genesis 10, the last son is Sino. Sino is China. China is African. China is a descendant of Ham. But then because they mixed in so much with the fallen seed, and they had a lot of fallen seed, literally, they're in the land that was assigned to them according to Jubilees. This is not, Africa is not their land. They were assigned the land that they are currently in. But they are Hamites. They are Hamites. They're not Gentiles. They are mixed in with some Gentile now, but they are Hamites. And so when you begin to understand who your enemies are, and of course, within the house of Israel, even there's the Midianites, there is the like I said before, the Ishmaelites, the Hagarians. So these are the people of Islam, and a lot of our people are in Islam and genetically mixed into Islam now. Why? For their redemption. They meant it for evil, Yah meant it for good, for their redemption, because they're supposed to turn to that seed. But nonetheless, you've got to understand that Israel is Israel. And so when you're looking at those groups, you've got to understand you have an open enemy. And so to choose these, you have to know that Esau is your enemy and who his tribes are and the ways that they're responding to you. And I know this is like, what I'm saying is like, I'm not even going to let my brother say it because he's right there in America. I'm in Canada. Canada's a little different. So, and I'm a woman, so I'm saying it. So it's harder on the brothers out there. So I'm saying it. And so this is the key thing that you guys have to wake up to. But as I said before, Yah has made a way for the redemption of Esau as well, to choose the house of Israel. Job was Esau. Job's whole family died, and he got a new family when he chose Yah. He got a brand new family at the end of his trial. And so it is even for Esau to choose Israel, to choose Yah, really. So Yah is gracious. He has a plan of redemption for everybody in this plan, but it's through his people. And there's scriptures in Wisdom of Solomon. You're not to let them rule over you, be leaders over you. You're not supposed to let these people rule you. And so these are the things that are gonna have to be unpicked. These are the things that Africa is gonna have to figure out. I know everyone has this heart for Pan-Africanism, and there's a way it fits with the plan of Yah, but only according to his plan. Only according to his plan.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I think we really exhausted this, and we must be yeah, and we're gonna continue in these lectures, and really, it is. I don't want to say we want to thank ourselves. We just thank him for giving us the grace to be able to share this with those that want to learn, and those that is their passion. Of course, on the Pan-African Daily TV, there are people that would tune in when there is business and investment forum. There are people that would tune in when we're talking about cultural renaissance. There are people that would tune in when we're talking about spirituality. There are people that would tune in. So we're not just a homogen, but there are people that would tune in to follow up all the unlearnings and the happening. So it is always a target oriented, and it's always people that is saying, this is my thing, I want to know in this direction. And that's what I love about us, the diversity, and who wants to learn what from the beginning. And Benayah, I've just been looking at your beads, your shirt, and I see your djembe, and I look at mine. I have 4 pieces of them, and I keep like, it was just like you're gonna grab any of them anytime and play something. Are you a musician? Do you do music as well?
Not really. I'm learning. I used to do music back a long time ago, but I'm trying to learn again.
Okay, that's good. That's really perfect. I'm also doing it. I'm learning. I'm taking courses for djembe, for kora. Just want to just get excited about knowing, not only in terms of lectures of learning knowledge of the head, but also skills. What are our skills? I mean, because it's so pathetic, Rachel. We're coming down to the reality of this normal day life things that we Africans are seeing it taken away from us without being aware. That's why I bring it here. In Germany today, because I come from the background of festivals, and we go to most of these festivals, I'm telling you, they just, even the non-African people that are learning to beat our drums, learning our kora, learning our own traditional instruments. And now when they learn these things and they begin to play it to us and we look stupid in front of them, they're all our gift from God. All certain nation is given its own attribute and its own gift. Now, but what is this kind of lazy attitude that even our children don't know that some music instrument, we prefer them to learn piano and cellos and stuff like that, even though they're still part of us. But the djembe, that is really the core of us, what we even fabricate, what we make. What is it that is hard? How many of us in the diaspora African people can beat these drums? And we all know every music instrument is used for a purpose. And so these are also some things that when we put it in terms of learning and listening to educate ourselves, but also skills in music and things that belong to us, that pertain to us. Owning this greatness, owning this authority means we also have to be directed to our own things that was given to us, so we can take the power in this sector. I'm saying it because we're coming up with a festival, the Global Pan-African Festival for Music, and it's going to take place. It's a virtual edition because, as you know, the COVID. We're not going to do a face-to-face. Nowhere is it happening on this event in this year. But we cannot just back up and just let this go slip out of our mind. So we're doing from the 1st to the 10th of October a virtual festival, and we want to connect all these realities of these pieces that you're saying and put them into a work. We're also going to combine them with art. What is it that with the kind of images that change our narratives that we people draw out there? This is in terms of visual art, and we have artists. And tomorrow is an extraordinary session with one of Nigeria's youngest talented artists that just use cutleries and does marvelous artwork out there. And his museum is lying out there in Lagos, Nigeria. How many Africans know this? Now, why am I saying this? You said people would take your land and they will occupy it. They would take even your stories. That was the commandment. That was the punishment that we're going through. Even when we argue, and I like one point that you made, Benayah, whether we like it or not, whether we do it or not, it's going to happen. Like he has said, you don't have a choice. It's either you do it or you don't do it, and you continue to complain and labor. Yes. Why? Most of these artists are being picked up by medias like the CNN and the BBC. Why do our own African media not pick them up to promote? Until they pick one of us, put out, then they wish to see, so we were really great. So they take us. They take these narratives, passion them, put them into us before we see them. This young guy has been doing this culture and has a small kind of a local museum. How many Africans know it? How many media, even his own local media has reported about it? Nothing. And we know thousands of us doing marvelous things like you're doing. No media to bring them to the platform to teach its own people. No media to show the greatness that they do. And all of us are in this vineyard of Jah doing his work, but no media, no platform for us to gather to see what the brother is doing out there. Because it's through this knowledge, these lectures, that we see the power, that we see what we can do, that we see the greatness of other prophecies or prophets that he's been using in another way. Painting, storytelling, music making, and all of them, we see them who we were. So for those of you that are still out there and looking, you can register your band, and we want to target all our people worldwide doing original indigenous music using our music instrument. What does that instrument mean? What is it changing? What are the strings? What was it designed and given to us from the time of creation? Today we know jazz is from America and stuff like that. Where are the origins of all this? This is the power that was taken away from us, maybe, as you're saying, because of we went away out of this world. So now he's bringing us back and giving us this platform, gather again, and we want to see what kind of music are our people doing out there. Same music, same people, different attitude, different images. That's going to come out from the 1st to the 10th of October. Yes. And I want to invite you to join me tomorrow with this great artist from Nigeria that is doing all this great work with sculptures. And what he said is, they told us that African art is primitive. But what he realized in his calling was that most of this art was stolen and it is in their museum. So tell your story. So we are not inferior, we are not primitive, our art is not primitive, but they tell you it is, but then they take it and they fashion out, like you're talking about the skulls and stuff like that. So we watch out to this moving session tomorrow with him. I want to thank you, and I give a last round of just a shout out to Benayah and to you, Rachel, exceptionally, and to all our viewers and the commentators that have been really putting out their thumbs out there and sharing this wonderful conversation. A lot of people also, apart from the questions that were coming up, because they want to learn, really adore you. They acknowledge that they want to know more, they want to follow you up. And it is really a great time to be with us all here. So you just want to say good night or goodbye, or what is it that you say? Remember this till we see again next week.
Well, we say shalom. Shalom. And thank you. And again, thank you for allowing me to be on your platform. Thank you, you. Thank you, Sister Rachel. Thank you for the listeners that dialed in, that put those great questions in the chat. To me, like I said, it's a very significant time. One, because we're having this conversation now. Because, like I said before, for some of us, this is the first time that our lineages, our ancestors have gotten together in over 1,000 or 2,000 years. Probably for some of us, the last time that our bloodlines have gotten together to talk, we were in the Promised Land. We were in Israel. So, like I said, this moment isn't lost on me. So, but I know for some of us that don't know that we're Israel, we may not grasp that. But yeah. So thank you for that. And like I said, if you want to learn more, check out the YouTube channel, check out the website, and so shoot me an email. It may take some time to get back, but Most High will, and I will respond.
What is the YouTube channel again? I missed it, and because I see people are saying they can't see it here, I think I should have. Rachel, did you send it to me? I'm just so sorry.
It's in your text. It's in your WhatsApp text. Both his channel and his webpage. You should be able to put in there.
All right, give me a minute. I'll be putting up while you're rounding up. I didn't say it. Thank you.
Did you finish, Benayah? You had more to say?
Yeah, no. I'm done. As far as here.
I want to say thank you also, because the audience, I'm just seeing a lot of the comments, and everybody is so gracious. The humility of people from Africa, man, it blows my mind all the time. Even we do get the usual questions and concerns that you also get in America, but I'm really grateful that you're listening, that you will actually, I can see why you listen to Benayah, because he's amazing, but you're listening to me also. I just give Yah the glory for that, and I thank you. The other thing I wanted to say was, wow, I was just making all kinds of faces, Enie, because the djembes, again, are a means of spiritual warfare. And interestingly enough, during the month of October, around the time that you are defining, is the time of Sukkot. And so spiritually, this is what I mean. The Africans, you guys just do. And then you said, and also what was the other name you called the djembe? The Korah. Korah is the name, is who Samuel was a descendant of, was Korah. Okay? So Samuel was one of the top Levitical priests of Israel, and he was a descendant of Korah. So you see there's a spiritual connection between playing those drums. These are the same drums that Miriam played after they had the victory of coming out of Egypt and into the Promised Land. And so when Africa, this is why they always talk to the Europeans about the fear of the sound of these drums, put fear into their hearts. It was also something, these drums that were used by the Maroons up in Jamaica as well. And so when you're doing these practices, it's important to understand that you're doing spiritual warfare against the enemy, and you're calling your sons home. That's what's happening. And so it's important to understand and just encourage people who want to seek the way again, to, when they're doing these things, to praise and celebrate Yah as they play these instruments, and also to do spiritual warfare against the enemy. Because if everybody is doing it at once all over the world, there's going to be some serious strongholds coming down. That's serious warfare. So I just wanted to add that. And so again, thank you for having me. May Yah bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine on you. May he be gracious, lift the light of his countenance, and give you peace. Shalom. Thank you so much for having us. And thanks for having me here. And thank you, Benayah. Hallelujah. Thank you for coming.
Hallelujah.
You're so humble and sweet. These men are just so lovely. I'm just like, I'm the big mouth one. But they're so humble and lovely. So I praise Yah. Thank you. Thank you, Benayah, for coming.
Anytime.
Oh, we can't hear you, Enie.
Said Queen, you are the organizer of this teachings, and every Sunday we're going to be here. We're looking forward for the next teacher that you're going to give us on Sunday. I don't know whether it's Ron or Benayah that is coming, or you yourself, or who else. We're looking forward. But this is the time of teachings, and we look forward every time. So give us the next contact and the next message who is coming up on Sunday. And yes, we are grateful.
Okay. Yeah, we'll
Thankful.
talk behind the scenes, because I know you wanted to take a break, and I didn't ask you how you had done an event this weekend, which took a lot of energy. So I know we wanted to take a little break. So I hadn't spoken to anybody yet, but we can talk behind the scenes about that again if you like.
All right. Wow. Okay. So we're calling it a date, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Really, on this Sunday, exactly. You can see I'm so worn out, tired after the event of this day. I'll tell you more on that in the coming series. But like one thing again, please join us tomorrow with this incredible artwork and this artist, this young talent from Nigeria that should be changing the narratives out there and connecting us spiritually through their passion and their work. And we look forward actually to bring these musicians worldwide, be it they're doing it from reggae to all the Black sounds that we have out there. But one thing that we want to communicate with this festival is this instrument exactly that Queen Rachel is talking about, because we see the spiritual connection. One thing, the project that we're coming out of this music festival is to encourage Africans worldwide, or Blacks or Israelites worldwide, to own a drum. Own a drum. Time is coming where we have to sound these trumpets, where we have to blow them so loud. And like Queen is saying, there's going to be a time where we say, now we're hitting all our drums. And because we realize at any time they can cut us off from all the streaming, from all these things, what are we going to use to pass a message to one another? So that's the project that is behind this festival and this music festival, to say, yeah, we're going to have artists perform all sorts in that. And we're calling out to bands that are doing the live recordings, and we'll be doing also panelists in between the act. And so we want to do it for 10 days, and we'll be looking the acts that are already coming up, like from Brazil, they're sending forward their group for samba. And then we also have our brothers from West Papua. They're also sending out, you're going to see those instruments, the trumpets that they use, the drums that they use. And then we have a band that is coming from Jamaica, from Tanzania, from Uganda, and all that. So we want to gather all this and give a common message of what is it that we should be prepared to? What is it that we should beat when the sounds and all this digital and telephones, they switch it off on us when the punishment will fall and we don't have? What is it that we're going to use to sound? So we're calling on every African to own a drum, to own a gong, to own a kora, to own a whistle, everything. That's the message of the festival. It's not just in celebrating our difference, but it's actually about teaching, like we're saying, teaching the knowledge that our people need to know to get prepared when everything falls. So I want to thank you so very much. And like I said, with the combination of this art and artists, we're going to get them also on board on this to share their passion and their own prophecies. So thank you so very much, everyone, for being here. We see ourselves tomorrow, and be patient when you come in. You know, it takes a little bit of time. If it's your first time that you're here, please, and you've been following Benayah and Rachel and you own the channels, please also subscribe to this channel, because they'll be teaching us, and they're teaching us in another form. And the language of teaching here is different because they're connecting all of us worldwide. So there's some series that they may teach particularly to certain groups that they would teach here that they wouldn't teach in their group. So click to subscribe, click to like our page, and also share with one another as we gather here in this house. Thank you very much. Good night, and we see ourselves tomorrow. May God shine his light upon you. Bye.